Our story is about a boy from an orphanage named Mark. Lately, he hasn't been able to find a job because these are difficult times. He needs money because the director will soon die and the orphanage will cease to exist. He is trying his best to earn at least some money and help the children. This guy knows better than anyone how difficult it is to live without parents. The shelter will only exist for a few more years, and during this time, it is necessary to quickly get rich. Nowadays, everyone is talking about the awakened ones, because these guys are very rich. 7 years ago, the tower appeared and it changed the whole world around us. The tower chose people at random and pulled them towards itself. No one knows what happens in the tower, because only a few were able to return. They refuse to comment on the situation or communicate with the press. People from the tower are called awakened, because a lot of mana can be found in their bodies. This has contributed to the progress of humanity, because the awakened can generate energy. They are now in demand all over the world and receive huge dividends for this. Suddenly, Mark saw a notification that he too had become awakened. They showed a video of him climbing the tower and fighting for success. It seemed like it was all just a game of the neural network. But in fact, he saw the future. In this video, he met Pops, who eat stones with their strong teeth. They provide information about rewards and also point the right way. Now Mark has seen his future and can start preparing right now. The portal will open in 2 years, so he has plenty of time to train. There is an immediate need to improve physical fitness as well as mental stability. If you study all the necessary videos, then clearing the tower will be successful. This way he will be able to get rich and save his shelter from bankruptcy. 2 years passed very quickly, and finally a portal opened before our hero. He took a risk and chose a high level of difficulty in order to earn all the money in the world. When he opened his eyes, he saw that he was in an unknown cave. The system reported that the stream had started, but so far it had no subscribers or earned coins. That's how it works in the tower. You have to win over the audience from the very beginning. The other awakened ones who are in the tower become spectators. They choose the broadcast and sponsor the awakened one. Thanks to the sponsorship, Mark will be able to climb higher up the tower. From the very beginning, the brand has already attracted the interest of some awakened people. He received some coins and also saw that the number of subscribers was growing. He probably got so much attention because he chose the hard difficulty level. Now he will be watched by the admin who monitors the rules in the tower. It is because of him that no one in the real world knows anything about this place. The admin forces the awakened to remain silent, although few people know about it. The first task is activated. Mark must eliminate the enemies that stand in his way. He expected to see something terrible, horrible demons thirsting for his blood. In reality, he met small, fluffy, round-shaped creatures. Pops may look cute, but their teeth are very strong and can chew through metal. When attacking, they resemble a shark and are very sensitive to the blood of their comrades. If a person kills Pops, he will be immediately destroyed by the army of his brothers. At first, Mark didn't understand what was happening, because the little monsters didn't react to him. They knew of his presence, but showed no reaction at all. The awakened enjoyed the streams and watched how the newbies were coping. For them, this is a normal pastime, because in the tower you can see real action. One of the awakened was surprised to learn that Mark had not yet died from the Pops' teeth. Not only did they not kill him, but on the contrary, they became friends with this guy. Their favorite mineral is mana stone, which they protect and then eat. Such stones are used to make magical items and are very expensive. When a stone is found, the Pops perform a ritual and then eat it. Mostly, monsters eat people because they don't trust their presence. But Mark imitated the Pops' behavior, and so they accepted him as their friend. After the ritual was completed, it was time to begin dinner. Our hero had no choice but to join the meal. He became a favorite of Pops, and in the tower such a privilege is priceless. He completed the test and went to the second floor. Subscribers could not believe their eyes. The number of active viewers was constantly growing, because it was incredibly interesting. The newbie chose a hard level and didn't die in the first seconds. That's fantastic. Thus, Mark became a popular blogger, but this is only the beginning. He even received a gift from a subscriber as recognition for his talent. In the box, he found a mana stone, a gift worth at least 5,000 coins. There was also a name change card and cash. Thus, he felt the love of his subscribers, but now he needs to go to the second floor. At one point, he began to glow like a lantern, and at first, he did not understand what was happening. Apparently, when he ate the mana stone, he received too much energy. On the 5th floor, you will have to choose a profession and determine your future path. You can become a knight, a magic specialist, or an engineer. There are also non-combat professions, but they are considered useless in the tower. He glows just like a knight who strengthens his body with aura. In the future, this can help you choose your profession and become a real warrior. While climbing to the second floor, Mark found a strange necklace. I had to try to keep the Pops from eating it, because these guys are always hungry. A rare ranked talisman brings good luck when worn around the neck. It can even save its user from death, but then be immediately destroyed. When Mark saw his future, his character also wore a talisman around his neck. It helped him survive on the 5th floor, and it is clear from the very beginning that this is a very important item. Such gifts are not received until the 10th floor, but thanks to Pops, Mark has already received his. Soon he reached the portal and prepared to go up. When he came out on the other side, he saw a huge and high tower in front of him. He looked around and saw hieroglyphs on the wall. Thanks to the system, one can understand what is written there. He was asked to remember the spilled blood of those who are called heroes. There was also a hint that not all efforts are equal and do not lead to the same results. Mark understands what this means, because in his world, he was born in terrible conditions. For people like him, all doors were closed because no one needed orphans. The test is about to begin. He must survive against the monster that will stand in his way. Mark has chosen a high difficulty, so he expects a huge and dangerous monster. A red bear that can spit fire could become such a monster. You can also encounter a sea snake, although such monsters are not capable of much outside the water. You will need to hold out for half an hour, and then the test will be passed. Soon, a huge portal opened, and Mark prepared to meet his destiny. Godzilla came out from there. There is no other way to call this monster. He hoped for the best, but the worst happened. The last of the money was used to buy a weapon, a one-handed axe of raids. The monster began to attack our hero and try to crush him like a cockroach. Mark was not afraid and immediately began to attack his opponent's weak spots with an axe. It turned out that this only angered Godzilla, and now she will destroy him. Apparently, this monster doesn't use toothpaste and his breath isn't the freshest. Mark didn't stop and felt a surge of courage. With the support of Pops, nothing is scary. But there's a reason why the dragon turtle is so hard to defeat. She is able to heal herself while hiding in her shell, and this is a very big problem. You have to wait a long time until she crawls out and continues the battle again. Mark climbed onto her shell, but the spikes could be a serious problem. If they start to glow red, then an explosion can be expected soon. Before that moment, you need to find a weak spot and deliver a crushing blow. In this case, the turtle will feel real pain and will no longer be able to hide. As soon as Mark delivered a powerful blow to the weak spot, an explosion immediately occurred. Once the dust cleared, it could be seen that the dragon turtle was dead. Mark did everything beautifully and used his mana reserves for this. He ripped out her spike, directed energy into it, and activated the explosion. Thus, the dragon turtle was destroyed. Despite its power, the subscribers were pleased. They hadn't felt such ecstasy for a long time. The tower's monsters accumulate and store mana, which the Pops adore. For them, the dragon turtle is a real delicacy, which is difficult to refuse. Viewers haven't seen anyone go through such difficulties in a long time. The number of subscribers is constantly growing. Mark is now watched by more than 200 people. This leads to more and more gifts and a constant increase in the number of coins. He even received a magic rune that raises the rank of any item. Mark also received a blessing and regained all his health. He has already begun to think about the chosen path. He's attracted to the path of an engineer. The engineer's path is always filled with mysteries, and his skills are not easy to apply in the tower. Most people regret choosing this class and are not perceived as combat units. But Mark is at the very beginning, and clearly remembers the guy from the video. A brilliant magical engineer is always visible on the battlefield. He can create his own weapons and achieve incredible victories. It was time to continue on our way as only 2 floors had been cleared. All the wounds disappeared, and Mark felt more confident than ever. The 3rd floor test, in the Garden of the Forgotten Ancient God, will begin soon. You will have to survive the battle against the defenders, who will wake up and begin the trials. At that moment, another player entered the 3rd floor, whom no one was expecting at all. Perhaps this challenge requires teamwork, and they will have to team up. They greeted each other and immediately felt a kinship of souls. After all, these guys are doing the same job and trying to achieve success. This guy's name is Willie, and at first glance he seems like a nice streamer. Mark wanted to introduce him to Pops, but at that moment the test began. The defenders of the ancient god appeared before them, and they were unfriendly. With each new floor, the difficulty of the task will increase, and this is bad news. It is often said that the real trials begin on the 3rd floor. On low difficulty there will be 1 statue, and on medium difficulty there are twice as many. On high difficulty the task is even more difficult, although there are still 2 defenders. The thing is that they need to be defeated at the same time, otherwise they will come back to life. The battle began very quickly. Any mistake could cost lives. Subscribers held their breath as something very interesting happened before their eyes. Mark did everything to win, and Willie was just watching. The statues quickly come to life, because only if they are destroyed simultaneously will the task be completed. We can't let them recover, so we need to be even more aggressive. If Mark hadn't intervened, Willie would have turned into fried chicken. This guy is not ready for such tests yet. Apparently he is still too raw. Mark decided to climb to the very top and try again to find his opponent's weak spot. He must do everything very quickly if he does not want to be torn to pieces. Thanks to his internal mana reserve, his attacks have incredible power. In this way, he can cut a huge stone statue into 2 pieces. Now, before the statue can be revived, he needs to kill the 2nd defender. Only by simultaneously destroying the defenders will you be able to complete the level. He managed to achieve his desired goal and deliver 2 precise and powerful blows. Although it was not easy, Mark successfully passed the 3rd test. Willie had never seen anything like it and asked for some advice. Mark has been above this floor for a long time, and therefore has no time for empty talk. He apologized and said that he had too much to do, and they would talk another time. It's time to enter the tomb of the ancient god and read an important message. The people who lived here expected their destruction, but did not know that everything would be so harsh. One could hear the constant cries of starving children and see dead soldiers on the soil of the empire. A mad ruler beheaded a young general who had just returned from war. For his disobedience, he was executed, and everyone remembered that one must not anger the emperor. It is not necessary to understand the meaning of the text now, but this information will help in future tests. It's time to get a new reward, this time, double the coins. Thanks to cross-streaming with Willy, the number of subscribers quickly increased. Mark was about to go to the next floor, but he saw that something was wrong with Pops. It feels like they are sick, or maybe they are just hungry and need to be fed. On the second floor, they ate almost the entire shell of a dragon turtle. They have been starving since then, so they need to quickly find food on the fourth floor. At that moment, Willy came running to thank his savior. He meets the man who tamed the Pops for the first time and wants to learn a lot from him. One day, they are destined to meet again, but for now their paths diverge. On the fourth floor, Mark finds himself in a temple that is sealed with a rune. You need to destroy the seal and open the door, and you have no more than 5 hours to complete this task. The fourth floor is very interesting, because players are given the opportunity to purchase any food and drinks. All this is done so that they relax and lose track of time, thereby failing the task. Study the inscriptions on the crystals to understand the pattern and find the correct color to solve the riddle. After touching the crystal, it changes color, but it's all too confusing. Mark had never seen anything like this before, and now his brain is melting from the complexity of the task. You'll have to replace the hieroglyphs with numbers. That's the only way to remember them. It's a bit like folding a magic cube, only several times more difficult. Time was running out, but Mark believed that he could complete the task on time. If he fails, he will remain on the fourth floor forever and forget about all his dreams. After several hours, the test was finally passed and the portal to the fifth floor opened. Subscribers started calling him a genius because he was progressing too quickly. Even the hard level can't stop this guy, so everyone wants to follow his progress. The Pops are still feeling unwell, so we need to hurry and find them some tasty food. On the new floor, Mark will have a week to explore the world of Astral and will see a picture of destruction. To pass the test on the fifth floor, there are two paths opposite to each other. You must either reach the chosen end or kill the other user. Mark will become the owner of one painting of the destruction of the astral world, and the second painting will belong to another user. Now we see the beginning of this story, and the 10-year-old heir to the empire. He asked his father for a magical animal for his birthday, but received a slap in return. His older brother's hatred breaks his heart, but the hero has long been accustomed to it. Now we hear stories from the life of the second heir to the Astral Empire, Michael Topros. He got a magical animal and didn't tell anyone, but soon his father found out about this act. He had to burn the magical animal, and for this, he received the nickname Executioner. Now Mark will be in Michael's body and will have to become the new emperor. This must be done without forceful intervention, otherwise the task will not be completed. The fifth floor is an alternate reality, and viewers are unable to leave the stream during the week of challenges. If another user completes the task faster, Mark will experience the destruction of the entire world. This makes the fifth floor incredibly difficult to get through and makes you constantly nervous. Now Mark must choose the desired power and receive a figure to use. If the user chooses the hard difficulty, they will be given a significant historical figure from the Astral Empire. Magical abilities are prescribed for the chief mage of the Empire. Magical engineering is created for the best engineers of the Empire. The Guardians of the Empire cannot do without physical strength, which they have in abundance. Here you can also find high-level combat classes, or the paths of professional sicarios. Almost instantly chose magical engineering, and now I will get an animal as a character. Apparently, he is not entirely happy, since it will be difficult to find common ground with the animal. Now you need to not get distracted and think only about the final goal. If the task is too difficult, Mark can always kill another player. Now he is getting used to his new body and is reading the character's diary to understand the whole situation around him. Mark quickly got into character and now looks like a real Hollywood actor. He asked to call Foderick to him so that he could understand all his plans. Foderick brought with you a magical animal from the north that arrived this morning. This animal is a pop, and there are 3 of them at the same time at the disposal of the heir. Mark had completely forgotten about them, but now they look even more painful. Foderick wants to know why the prince is emitting mana. Something is clearly wrong with his body. I had to calm the assistant down and say that there was nothing strange about it. It is believed that people can explode when you want to find too much mana. He can control it, but if an emotional situation occurs, anything can happen. Finally, Foderick said that the first principal began to behave strangely. Mark must be more careful, even though he still doesn't understand the seriousness of the situation. Federic is the only one who can be trusted. He serves only the second principal. He used to be the Empress's personal knight, but ended his activities when she left the world. Mark learned that the Pops were feeling unwell, because they had eaten too much mana. I should have kept them away from the dragon turtle, but it was too late to think about that now. In a week, Mark must defeat the first prince and become emperor. Killing your opponent will be easier, but it will be difficult to get quality rewards. He went down into the dungeon and saw the animals that the second prince was secretly protecting. He will leave Pops here for a while, because there's a lot of work ahead. The amount of coins is enough to buy the skill of basic animal magic. Mark quickly absorbed the skills and was now ready to plan future actions. His opponent became a mage or a knight, which means he has a research room or training ground. You need to do everything to prevent him from achieving his goal, and thereby make your path easier. It turns out that another streamer chose the knight class and is now practicing martial arts. Thanks to the skill book, he progresses quickly and already knows a lot. His name is Jordan, and this guy always feels like he's the best among everyone around him. Ever since he was a child, he considered himself lucky, and that's why he chose the high difficulty level in the tower. He easily defeated the monsters on his way, and thus reached the 5th level. Jordan even killed another contestant and received a huge number of viewers for it. He's not very smart, but Mark should be wary of this guy and be prepared for anything. Jordan immediately bowed to the prince, because he doesn't know who exactly the second player is. His character is called the Black Lion, an honest man who hates liars. His mannerisms were difficult to get used to at first, but Jordan adapted quickly. He thinks that his opponent, the second streamer, has chosen the role of a mage or a knight. He talks to Mark and is absolutely sure that in front of him is only a character of the Empire. Now there's a mental battle going on. Each of them wants to understand the other's thoughts. Jordan realized that there was a streamer in front of him, and so he immediately grabbed his sword. At this point, the situation quickly got out of control, but Fodrick intervened. I had to calm this guy down because he was already ready to kill for the second prince. Finally, he warned the Black Lion that such jokes would not work here. Judging by his speech, one can say that he misses the time when he understood the duties of a knight. After this incident, Mark decided not to waste any more time and to visit the engineer's workshop. He wants to take the honest path and achieve the mission without killing. Meanwhile, Jordan went to the central library and got the information he needed. Apparently, he wanted to find out everything about Fodoric and prepare his plan. Apparently, Jordan is upset that another streamer is a prince and can destroy him at any moment. He only needs to give the order, and his knights will come for Jordan. One of the subscribers promised to help him and give him some tips for completing the mission. First, you need to find out all the information about the second prince. Thus, he learned a lot and now understands who he will have to deal with. As soon as he learned the identity of his opponent, he immediately came up with the perfect plan for victory. An hour before, they had already met in the corridor of the estate and talked a little. Jordan said that he found out all the information about Mark, and now he will easily win this battle. He doesn't intend to die and stay on the 5th floor, because since childhood he has considered himself a winner. If he reveals the name of his opponent in the chapel, he will be able to pass the test instantly. He learned this information from a subscriber, but such methods are not particularly recommended. There's always the risk of getting a fine, but either way, Jordan will save his life. And that's the main thing. He took out the sacred key and named his opponent. The answer turned out to be wrong. Now he will be cursed by an evil spirit, and his life will change. The curse will affect his skills. He will lose all his abilities and knowledge. Apparently, it would have been better for him not to listen to his subscribers' advice, but to trust his own intuition. When their previous conversation ended, Mark didn't understand at all. He calmly returned to his room and remembered one of the gifts he received for passing the test. With this coupon, he can change his name at any time. So it was decided to call ourselves Mark II, and it was brilliant. This is enough to ruin all of your opponent's plans and nullify his skills. Jordan will be forced to repurchase skill books, and that will be a problem. If there are no sponsors among his subscribers, he will fail the task. At that moment, the knights knocked on the door and said that the Black Lion wanted to talk to the prince. Even though he was asked to calm down, now he looks like he has turned into a madman. Mark decided to let him into his room, because now he didn't have to be afraid of this guy. He wants to openly mock him, because thanks to his intelligence, he easily outplayed Jordan. Intelligence was always this guy's weak point, so he always used force. Now Jordan has decided not to change himself, but has completely forgotten that he has lost all his skills. If he wants to survive, he must forget about enmity and stay out of the way. He shouldn't bother Mark anymore, so you can focus on the mission. The problem is that even if the Emperor dies, his eldest son will replace him. Therefore, it cannot be ruled out that you will have to get rid of the second streamer in order to pass the test. Mark changed his appearance and went to train as a magical engineer. Now he is no longer the second prince. He tried his best, but his skills grew slowly, because now he was an ordinary knight. Soon, subscribers announced that the time had come for the event, and it was time to finish the workout. This event is connected with the Day of Judgment that awaits the second prince. Apparently, Mark knows nothing about this at all, and therefore asks his subscribers to share information. Mark soon learned that the imperial trial would begin today. The second prince was taken into custody and accused of murdering the emperor. Everyone is sure that this is for the best, since the second prince is of practically no use. The crowd gathered to watch the trial of the principal, because it is a big event. Here you can also meet Fodoric. Today he has the face of a dying man. The emperor trusted no one and left knights everywhere, and therefore his death seems suspicious. All the knights who guarded him were beastmen, and it was impossible to pass them unnoticed. The weak second prince could hardly cope with the emperor, because he was always unprepared. Subscribers believe that the first prince is involved in this matter, as he is the most interested party. The court promises to judge fairly, because there must be clear laws in the empire. The defendant was caught red-handed, but did not confess to the crime. However, all the facts confirm his guilt, and therefore it is only necessary to declare the crime. The second prince, Michael Topros, stood up and began answering the judge's questions. It's hard to believe that such a guy killed his own father, because he looks like a child. This morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, he went to the sleeping emperor's room and asked him for an audience. The conversation lasted more than half an hour, and there are witnesses who confirm this fact. The knights who were in the corridor opened the doors when the conversation stopped. The emperor lay on the floor, in a pool of his own blood, and in front of him stood Michael. He was incredibly scared, and tears were streaming from his eyes. there was no doubt about the crime. The investigation revealed that the emperor was poisoned by powdered lapa leaves. This powder was added to his tea and also placed on his clothes. People were furious, because the worst thing was that the prince did not object to this information. He must be tied to horses and dragged across the land of the empire so that everyone can see this disgrace. Everyone knows what happens to those who take the life of a ruler. Frederick couldn't believe his own ears. He wasn't ready to believe that Michael was a killer. The investigation was poorly conducted. Everyone was in a hurry, trying to hide something. All this was too alien to the second principal, but no one listened to Fodor. Mark couldn't understand what was happening. Just yesterday he was in the prince's body, and now Michael was being called a murderer. He became incredibly angry, said that he would destroy the tower, and also talk harshly to the admins. Soon our hero woke up. It all turned out to be just an ordinary dream and nothing more. He watched too many videos about the empire while preparing for his mission. Because of this, he has similar dreams, but now he knows what to do next. The reason the prince was obsessed with animals was because of the emperor. There was nothing about the prince in the video, so I'll have to find out for myself. There is too little information about this in the diary. Only Fodor can tell something more valuable. As a child, the prince was slapped by his father when he asked for a magical animal, and this is an important memory. Back then, the principal was going through hard times, but now Frederick can explain everything. As soon as the conversation between them took place, Mark immediately went to the emperor's room. The emperor went mad after the death of his wife and looked for those to blame for this incident. He loved his wife madly, but at the same time he began to hate his own son. Michael wanted to receive a magical animal as a birthday present. It was too dangerous for the young prince, and everyone around him understood it. Mark heard a lot of interesting things about Fodrick, and now he must play the role of the second prince flawlessly. He should not be shy and gloomy, but on the contrary, he wants to surprise the emperor. At first, the guards refused to bite him inside, but Mark was ready for it. He started screaming like crazy and put on an incredible performance. The door was immediately opened, and no one stopped the young heir of the family anymore. Inside, he met the ruler of the Astral Empire, Thomas Topros, who greeted his son coldly. Mark asked the guards to leave the room and speak with the operator one-on-one. There was a strange aura between them, as if they were analyzing and intimidating each other. The father commands the beastman through the ring on his finger and quickly orders them to leave. Mark is sure that this ring is not real and knows that his father has another ring. The empire's first prince, Slon Topros, received his father's blessing 3 years ago. During the celebration, he gave his father some alcohol and an unpleasant incident occurred. He wiped away the alcohol with his handkerchief and discreetly removed his father's ring. He then swapped it for a fake and hid the real ring in a scarf. Of course, the father is not ready to believe in guesses. He needs clear and dry facts. Mark is sure that no evidence is needed because everything is already clear. All this time, he pretended to be stupid. But in fact, he wants to become an emperor. There's only room for one king in the empire, and Thomas knows that better than anyone. In that case, he needs to die immediately and make way for his heir. Subscribers couldn't help but admire this guy, because he makes incredible content. They were ready to sponsor him on a permanent basis so that he could continue to delight them with his work. Now he plans to take some rest and then start learning new skills. It is time to study the magical engineering that has been talked about so much. At this moment, the long-awaited meeting with the first prince of the empire, Slon Topros, took place. He already knows that yesterday his father did not drive away the second heir, although this had never happened before. Apparently, he gets all his information from the beastman and continues to use the ring to eavesdrop on the emperor. Soon a master of the imperial court named Bran approached them. He doesn't like it when someone makes noise near the workshop, and therefore asks everyone to calm down. The elephant always hated him, and as soon as he became emperor, he would definitely try to get rid of the master. The pleased prince entered the workshop and immediately smelled the oil. Now his magical engineering skills will grow, and he will be able to buy a book of knowledge. The convenience of the technique was studied, the mastery of learning skills increased, and Mark reached a new level. He decided to contact the master again and ask him for a favor. Meanwhile, the eldest heir to the empire began to become noticeably worried. He learned about the conversation between the emperor and his second son, but remained confident that he was in control of the situation. He is ready to use the ring and get rid of Michael so that no one else will cause him problems. At that very moment, Mark asked the master for the opportunity to use the workshop. He said he had a basic understanding of the subject and wanted to take it seriously. In order to confirm his words, he must now read what is written on this sheet. This task is somewhat reminiscent of the fourth floor, a real riddle with hieroglyphs. A few minutes later, Mark completed the task and deciphered the text. Although he was only half right, it was enough to gain the master's trust. Now he can use the workshop and do whatever he wants. The main thing is to keep it in order. The next few days passed without any particularly important events. There was less and less time left until the end of the mission, and it was unclear whether Mark was getting closer to his goal. When the last day was left, Fodrick came into the workshop and announced that the emperor had been killed. An investigation will begin now, and we need to quickly find out what happened. As soon as Fodrick said this, knights immediately entered the room and said that the second prince was accused of murder. The hearing hadn't even started yet, and everyone was already treating Michael like a criminal. Fodrick tried to do something, but he simply lacks the power and influence. So the time has come for judgment, and we have already seen the previous version of events. Now Mark had to be prepared for this and had to come up with a plan to solve the problem. At the beginning of the process, everything matches the video he saw before the test began. Most of the nobles in the hall are on the side of the first prince, and the second prince has no allies at all. Oddly enough, even in this situation, Mark feels confident and behaves calmly. Over the next few minutes, the whole story repeated itself, with the judge accusing the prince of murder. After this, Mark calmly stood up and said that he did not agree with the accusations because he did not kill his father. They refused to believe him and firmly demanded that he provide evidence. The prince replied that he had no evidence, but he had a witness. He is ready to lay down his own head if his words are questioned. The judges were already ready to sentence him to death, but at that moment, a witness entered the room. Everyone was shocked because the emperor appeared inside, although he was supposed to be killed that night. Grand Duke Magnus was sure that all this was just a dream and he could not believe his own eyes. Everyone around immediately began to bow to the emperor and did not forget about maintaining propriety. Thomas is ready to personally pass judgment because he is the chief judge of the empire. It's time to begin the full hearing, and now I'll go over all the witnesses again. Everyone around started to get nervous. Apparently Magnus and his friends felt the nearness of death. Magnus promised that everything would go without problems and there was no need to even worry. He bribed most of the influential aristocrats as well as the judge. The emperor immediately delivered his verdict on the case, declaring that the second prince was not guilty. He started beating Magnus and telling him about all his sins. He promised to judge impartially, without relying on emotions, but he forgot about his oath. He teamed up with Slan and turned into a pathetic rat that began to devour the empire. Even though Magnus tried to justify himself until the very end, his words no longer meant anything. Now he is officially declared a first-class criminal and must be locked up in prison. Now it's time to tell how it all happened and explain all the nuances of the case. 4 days ago, in the emperor's reception room, we saw an incomplete conversation. The second principal asked his father to commit something similar to suicide. He explained that he was running out of patience watching his older brother's bad behavior. If the emperor dies, the elephant will definitely try to eliminate the second heir. Before this, he will want to humiliate him publicly and blame him for the death of the emperor. Now the prince has a plan to make all the rats show their true faces. Now the second prince has been released, and the emperor demands the immediate arrest of Slan Topros. He tried to scream and ordered them to let him go immediately, but no one could hear him anymore. Now the trial begins again from the very beginning, and it is time to change the places of the accused. The second prince has been unfairly bullied and now has the right to take revenge. He wanted to personally prove Slan's guilt and immediately received the emperor's permission. He began asking tough questions and ordered Elephant to confess to the crime. Of course, the first heir denied everything and repeated that he was not guilty of anything. He is sure that now his younger brother will fall to his knees and beg for mercy. Well, his younger brother has changed. Now he doesn't give in to manipulation and remains neutral. We need to go back many years to better understand the relationship between the two brothers. Michael bought a birthday present and he wanted to please his father in any way possible. The elephant said that his father adores magical animals and would be delighted if Michael asked for such a gift. As soon as Michael actually asked to buy him an animal, his father immediately slapped him in the face. Fodrick then asked not to worry and calm down, and promised to find out what went wrong. Soon the second principal created a secret room, and it was thanks to Fodrick that it did so. In the future, he received several magical animals and felt happy. Fodrick asked to keep this a secret from his father, but the plan failed and the emperor found out everything. He ordered the animals to be burned with his own hands, and this was too cruel. No one knew this information except his brother and Fedric. Could it be that they set him up? He ended up burning his animals and was then given the terrible nickname, the Executioner. He decided to go to a local bar and get drunk, promised himself to raise animals again, but did not tell his brother about it. He got so drunk that he even got into a fight with local hunters who were killing magical animals. When he woke up, Fodrick was next to him and helped him get home. He could no longer trust anyone except animals, whom he considered his best friends. Now it's time to continue the trial, but I think a lot has become clear to you by now. The elephant did everything to seize the initiative and turned to the guards. He used the magic ring and was confident that he would now hear evidence in his favor. He stole this ring from his father and gained the ability to control the beastmen. But strangely enough, the guard said that at the crime scene he saw only an elephant. It was a difficult truth to come to terms with, especially for such a self-confident guy. In fact, the original ring was already on the emperor's hand. Mark walked up and calmly took the fake, thereby receiving irrefutable proof of his brother's guilt. Now nothing can save him, and all his evil deeds will work against him. Now everyone around was prepared to hear the final verdict. There was no doubt that Slan was guilty, and he was ordered to be arrested immediately. Just a few minutes ago, Michael was in his place, and now he wants to fully justify himself. The elephant must perceive this as partial retribution for everything he has done over all these years. Now he has no power in this empire and will never rise from the ashes again. It may have been too harsh, but we must not forget how bad a person Slan was. Not only did he bully his younger brother, but he also tried to kill his own father. He will be tied to horses and dragged across the empire, and that will only be the beginning. After such punishment, his head will be cut off and hung at the highest point of the city for a month. It must be admitted that the father was also cruel. Apparently, compassion is alien to the empire. Finally, Mark decided to tell the emperor that in this hall, there are people who are moving the empire forward. He wants to become the source of prosperity for the astral empire and be the main heir to the throne. When my father heard that he had to resign, he immediately laughed nervously. His words were unconvincing, but for the first time the father felt pride in his youngest son. He apologized to everyone in this room and made his final statement. The king of the astral empire, Emperor Thomas Topros, officially passes his throne to his youngest son. As soon as these words were heard throughout the hall, everything around immediately began to disappear. Mark quickly returned to his original form and received notification of successful completion of the 5th floor. Not only did he complete the mission, but he also received many offers to become an administrator. If he refuses, death awaits him, so he has no choice. At that moment, even though he feared death and failure, Mark decided to refuse. Apparently, he doesn't think about his future at all, but they will meet again on the 10th floor. Mark was supposed to go up to the next floor of the tower, but this did not happen. Apparently, he hasn't finished the test yet and must play out his role. Now he has officially become the emperor of a huge territory, and he still can't believe it. At this time, the elephant was already in prison, from where it would be difficult for him to escape. He refused to believe in reality and convinced himself that it was just a bad dream. By then, Jordan had received notification that he had lost his challenge. His opponent reached his goal first and became the emperor, so death awaits him. We won't show everything that happened next, we'll just confirm that the tower doesn't forgive mistakes. There's a little more than one day left until the end of the mission. You need to play the role of the emperor properly. In the evening, the celebration began, but the second prince did not take part in it and was in the corridor of the estate. He clearly remembers watching a video of this guy when he was preparing for the test. Then he really felt sorry for the second prince, and he wanted to help him in every possible way. Michael looked like a poor guy, rejected by fate and abandoned by his family. Then Mark promised to definitely help him if he got to the 5th floor, and that's what happened. This world is not real. Mark is not Michael Topros, and it's all just a game. But in any case, he hopes that the second principal will be happy. He will no longer be betrayed, and he will finally feel the love of his family and the love of the people. The next morning, he immediately took a bath and tried to remember what had happened in the evening. The party was really exciting, and now it's hard to get rid of the headache. Subscribers began congratulating him on his victory and sending large sums of money. His ascent continues, and new adventures are now expected of him. After all the morning procedures, the young emperor went to his father. He came here to talk about an incident in his childhood that involved magical animals. Apparently, Fodrick never told him the whole truth, and Thomas has to do it. There is no point in hiding anything anymore, so the father is ready to return to the past. When he saw the collection of magical animals, he noticed that there were very dangerous creatures among them. Sooner or later, they could turn into mad killers. But the little heir did not understand this. Only a little later, it became clear that the whole thing was orchestrated by the elephant, and the animals were not crazy. The father always saw his dead wife in his son, and therefore it was difficult for him to see his son. The young emperor thanked his father for the whole truth and left the room. The plot hole has been closed, but one last meeting needs to be held. He came to express his gratitude to the master, because he also played a significant role. Mark came to pick up the gloves he had made himself, but the master warned him that they were dangerous. There's a sense of instability in them, so it is better to be careful. After the test is over, all of this will disappear, and there's not much time left until that moment. The unjust death of the second heir will become part of history. There is no doubt that the time spent on the 5th floor will have a serious impact on our hero. At that very time, Userbeck was on the 3rd floor. He had just completed a mission and read the history of the Astral Empire. It told the story of a wise emperor, full of courage and enthusiasm. The common people adored him, and the nobles bowed down in fear and respect. If a wanderer reads this text, you should never play with the kind heart of Emperor Astral. At the bottom of this story was a signature written in the hand of a knight named Fodrick. This is how our hero influenced history in an empire that seemed unreal. Mark met with the assistant and tried to find out how Popsy was feeling. At the moment, everything is fine with them, so there is no need to worry and we can finally see them. These guys are already missing their owner, and frankly speaking, he misses them too. In his office, Mark saw a glove made in the workshop. This thing is very unstable, and any mistake can lead to great danger. He learned about her from Reynold, a magical engineer he had been watching online. The history of magical engineering in the tower is divided into before and after Reynold, because he really did change everything. Mark is not as genius as he is, and that's why his glove keeps breaking, but he doesn't give up. It's already usable now, and it can be much more useful than it seems. The mission time was over, he returned to his true form and prepared to enter the portal. Finally, it remains to look at your gifts for successfully completing the 5th mission. This message is from the admin. He wants to hint that Mark is the same person he saw in the video in the past. In the next box, he found the leather shoes of a family master. Heroic rank. No one on the stream was surprised by the heroic rank item, and there's a reason for that. Such objects are very difficult to control, and sometimes lead to very dangerous situations. Just relax for a second and shoes, like these, can do it without you being dead. The shoes can be transformed into any type of sneaker, so Mark won't lose his signature style. After that, he took all the rewards and entered the portal to the 6th floor to meet new adventures. In the Forest of Evil Spirits, 4 participants gathered to get rid of all enemies. 5 waves of opponents await the participants, and in an hour, everything will begin. Here, Mark immediately met a muscular guy dressed in knight's armor. He will play the role of a knight. Next to him is a magician and an unknown girl in a mask. She immediately smelled of snobbery, but perhaps this is only a first impression, and it is false. Whether they like it or not, they must go through the trials together, otherwise nothing will work out. The muscular guy's name is Chuck. He is 26 years old and works as a trainer at the gym. The wizard's name is Pack. He doesn't intend to adapt to anyone, and wants to quickly part ways with his new friends. The girl's name is Teresa. Her profession is unknown, but she knows how to drink and take a punch. Mark also talked a little about himself and said that in the real world he worked as a salesman in a store. Everyone was surprised that he was a magical engineer, because such people don't know how to fight. Now, no one counts on it because it may be of little use. The young schoolgirl said that the three of them could handle it, but that was too hasty a statement, so he asked everyone to calm down and analyze the situation as best they could. They are now surrounded by a very thick fog, which is the border of this floor. Teresa and Chuck must fight on the front lines and receive support from the wizard, while Mark is a redundant element. There is no need to be surprised by their reaction. Magical engineers are indeed considered too weak. The system reminded that in a few seconds the first problems for the participants would begin. Chuck immediately prepared his sword and said that he was not afraid of anyone and was ready to fight. Apparently, he underestimated the danger and overestimated his capabilities. Teresa realized that the situation was out of control from the very beginning. When you retreat. Even at her young age, she understands perfectly well when to back down. The monsters level is incredibly high, so newcomers have no chance of survival. Although Mark expected a difficult test, he did not know that the admin would do everything to kill the entire team. Chuck was sure he was going to die and gave up any hope of resistance. Only at the last moment of his life did he see that young Teresa was not afraid and came to his aid. This girl is truly fearless, and with her actions she quickly stabilizes the situation. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that she has millions of fans, because even I have already become her fan. She is so young that they call a 26-year-old guy an old man, and it is really funny. Teresa hates it when incompetent and weak adults get in the way. When Mark watched the video about the future, she was already a famous awakened one. Now she thinks that everyone on this team is weak, but she's too quick to jump to conclusions. She looks at Mark and feels like they have met before. So far, Mark hasn't made his move, but he will have to demonstrate his strength in the future. He saw his wounded comrade and realized that he could help thanks to his glove. It had to be a little painful, but at least it won't bleed anymore soon. The wizard was surprised to see such an artifact, but Teresa did not attach much importance to it. They couldn't relax because it was time to fight a new wave of monsters. Teresa immediately went forward and fearlessly began to destroy the monsters with her bare hands. She cleared 2 waves of monsters without the help of her partners, and this is pure madness. She was called the gift of close combat for obvious reasons, because she is a true legend. She climbed to the 4th floor, thanks to luck and donations, and on the 5th floor she played an ordinary woman and wandered the streets. The reclusive master trained her in close combat and helped her awaken, after which she became a legend. Mark had heard of her, but he never thought they would meet under such circumstances. Teresa can help you get through any test, and without her, it will be very difficult to get to the next floor. The players are preparing for a new wave of monsters. Chuck is resting for now, as his injuries will not allow him to fight. This time, only 2 monsters came and Teresa quickly destroyed them. Apparently, this was just a diversionary tactic to attract the schoolgirls' attention. Now the boys must take responsibility into their own hands and show what they are capable of. The wizard's fire attack didn't work. Apparently, he was just an amateur. Now all hope lies with Mark, who has been hiding his true potential for a long time. Teresa also cannot relax, because she is being attacked from all sides. She almost lost her life due to the attack of a huge monster, but she was saved at the last moment. Oddly enough, this was the very guy she had underestimated. Such monsters are called cleaners, and wizards are easy targets for them. The monsters are able to fly in a straight line at high speed and also have an impenetrable shell. But if you look at the situation from a different angle, you can find their weaknesses. In this case, the only thing left to do is act quickly and forget about the Animal Protection Society. Mark realized that Teresa needed help, so he needed to use his new boots. They can provide unmatched speed and add power to a strike. Everything happened so quickly that Teresa didn't even notice how Mark destroyed the enemies. The 3rd wave of monsters has been passed, and now there's some time to rest. It turned out that Chuck was not a powerful magician. He had only learned a few spells. It will be difficult to rely on him in a critical moment, but he may seem useful in some ways. The time for rest passed unnoticed. The monsters are attacking again, but Chuck returned to the team. He can't help yet, but sometimes he screams so loudly that he helps scare away the monsters. Mark and Teresa took over all the heavy lifting and quickly destroyed the new wave. It was clear that the rest of the team felt uncomfortable. With each new wave, there are more and more monsters, and it becomes more difficult to survive. Pak began to complain to his subscribers and said that he could no longer tolerate this violence. When the 5th wave began, Mark took control of the situation and ordered everyone to immediately lie down on the ground. At first, no one trusted him, but he acted so self-confidently that he gained the authority he deserved. Thanks to his glove with a mana stone, he was able to destroy a huge number of monsters with one wave of his hand. It should have been done this way from the very beginning, but apparently no one thought of it before. Nobody could figure out who this guy really was. It felt like he was Superman. After the attack, Mark felt terrible pain and began to spit blood. He spent too much magical power and his body suffered. However, This sacrifice was worth successfully passing the test. The players have been granted access to the 7th floor, and now even greater troubles await them. Teresa felt a little awkward as she was used to being the main star. Mark asked them to go ahead, as he wanted to stay and check the reward. Apparently, no one wanted to separate, because during this time they felt trust in each other. Teresa took a rash step, took off her mask, and showed her face. She wants to know who Mark really is, because his talent is incredible. Now all the players' viewers have started to switch to Mark, because he has become the main star. Thus, our hero received additional coins and sponsorship. He also became a role model. Now Chuck wants to become like his hero. Each of them checked their reward and prepared to continue their personal journey. The most interesting thing is that everyone received a regular prize, everyone except Mark. Soon everyone saw that the special box contained the leather gloves of the Master of the Seven Snakes. After that, everyone thanked each other for their help, and most of the compliments were directed at Mark. If they knew that magical engineering works like this, you would have a different attitude towards this profession. Once everyone had left, Mark decided to play a little with his little pops. He didn't even suspect that Teresa had been silently watching him all this time. At first she wanted to laugh, but then the little creatures completely captured her attention. She couldn't resist, because she had never seen anything more beautiful and sweet in her life. After this, the schoolgirl became angry, quickly said goodbye, and entered the portal. Mark also needs to hurry to the 7th floor. He must not fall behind the others. On the 7th floor, everything is different. Here you can meet a mysterious guy. He wants to start a psychological battle, but it's not clear yet what all this means. Thanks to the video, Mark already knows a lot about the 7th floor, so he's not afraid of adventures. On this floor, 2 players are gathered at the same time. They will take part in the mission. But less than half an hour remained in the test, and a huge, creepy statue appeared before our hero. Behind this statue stood a man. He was pale and showed no emotion, like a zombie. Mark immediately became scared, because he had already seen this man in the video about the 7th floor. When he looked at his future, he saw information about each test. There was that guy on the 7th floor, his name is Charles, and he doesn't want to hurt anyone. It's strange to hear this from a man who just killed a whole crowd of ordinary people. Then in the video, he threatened Mark that he could do the same to him. This was enough for our hero to get scared and almost swallow his tongue from fear. Now he understands that he is facing a very dangerous character. Well, he needs to stay calm. They soon met, and Mark tried to find out more information about this guy. Charles was in no hurry to tell anything unnecessary, but Mark was already well informed enough. He knows what to expect from him, but in any case, Charles is the worst possible opponent. They will face a lie detector test, a psychological game where they must catch their opponent in the act of lying or deceive them themselves. Charles came here of his own free will and has no intention of backing down. Now you need to figure out what question to ask him to catch his lie and move on to the next stage. Charles decided to ask questions first. He had a minute to do so. His question turned out to be quite simple. He wants to understand whether Mark knew him before he entered the tower. Mark tried not to show his emotions and said that he didn't know who Charles was and that this information could not be verified. But even despite this, Charles confidently declared that it was a lie and pressed the button. The system checked the result and ordered Mark to ask the next question. He wants to know if Charles is willing to kill people, even if it's not necessary for the test. It must be admitted that the answer was terrible, because Charles, with a smile on his lips, declared that he was ready to kill even now. After that, he asked Mark if he knew about the upcoming tests in the tower. As soon as Mark said he knew nothing, Charles pressed the lie button again. Apparently this guy knows everything in the world, because he masterfully reads the lies of our hero. In such a short period of time, he studied his opponent perfectly, and this deserves applause. Now Mark wants to know if his rival is ready to kill his wife if necessary. Charles replied that he could not do that to his beloved, and Mark was sure that this was a lie. The statue's eye lit up red, meaning that Mark had indeed guessed correctly. Now he is leading in the score, and this means that he has the right to ask one more question. If Charles's wife had followed him to the tower and stood in his way, would he have killed her? Could he cut her in half and scatter the pieces of flesh on the street? The statue determines lies based on facts, and also takes into account the mindset and thoughts. This is why Mark is in the lead, because his lies cannot be detected. He said that he couldn't do that to his wife, because it was too much. Mark agrees that you can't do that with love. But at the same time, Charles is lying. The check confirmed that this was indeed a lie. Mark had masterfully read his opponent, but Charles wasn't upset and even laughed like a psychopath. He said that he knew the truth, and he knew that Mark had entered the tower a second time. Our hero certainly didn't expect this plot twist, since only he knew this information. As soon as Mark said it wasn't true, Charles immediately pressed the lie button. He was sure that he completely understood his opponent, but the statue again lit up red. This was the last straw. Now the devil will apply punishment to the player Charles. When Mark watched the video about his future, he remembered every detail. At that time, he was also offered to take the position of administrator. But now another person is going through the tests, someone who knows the future and learns from mistakes. He is sure that he is a different person entering the tower for the first time, so the statue believed him. Ropes appeared from the darkness. They tied up Charles and prepared him to be punished. The statue took out its long sword and prepared to cut the guy into pieces. Finally, Charles tried to understand who Mark really was, but he never heard an answer. The thing is, even Mark doesn't know who he is, so it's a stupid question. At that moment, he remembered the video. He had an important conversation with Charles. Charles said that he came to the tower not because he was afraid of death, but because life was too boring. He feels absolutely nothing, even when terrible things happen. He killed his own people, but his heart remained calm and his hands cold. Now that a huge sword had cut him in half, it was unlikely that he would have remained calm either. It is unknown whether his wife will be happy when she gets to the tower, because the future is uncertain. Mark just got rid of a bad future to try to do something good. The test was passed, the portal to the next floor opened, and Mark received his gift. This time, the master of the 7 snakes armlets awaited him, one of the 7 artifacts of the master. Soon Mark will have a complete set, and then new opportunities will open up for him. As soon as Mark reached the 8th floor, he immediately smelled the fresh scent of summer grass. In 10 minutes, monsters will attack him, and he must destroy everyone in his path. When the time was up, he saw that he was surrounded, but the monsters were not at all as expected. The Pops quickly approached him and began to attack from different sides. It seemed like they were going to tear him apart, but in the end, they just wanted to cuddle a little. Because he learned the basics of magical animals, he no longer has to fear such creatures. They are clearly happy to see him, which means the tests have been passed instantly, and the way to the 9th floor is open. You can call Mark a cheater, and it will be partly true because he really did hack the game. From the portal, Mark received a scroll with important information written on it. There were many incomprehensible symbols, but all the information described the legendary tree. Foreign and Forden, the name of the world trees that confused the fate of the world of Astral. After the devil spirit was suppressed, the world tree fell, and the Astral Empire was plunged into darkness. The 25th floor test will take place in the tangled world of Astral, but that is still a long way off. Now there's time to rest a little, because during this time Mark has been through a lot. After a short rest, it was time to head to the next floor. The Pop group was unhappy that he wouldn't take them with him, but that's the harsh reality of life. There will be 2 players on this floor, and here again, there is a temple sealed with a rune. The other person turned out to be a girl, and she was glad to see the real Pops. She seemed quite nice and friendly, quickly got acquainted with Mark and gave her name. Her name is Jennifer. Mark knew that they were in the same group, but did not expect to meet in person. She is also known by the nickname Witch. Her real name is known to few people. She was never intimidated by the extreme difficulty of the tasks, but instead turned her attention to the Pops. There were many people who died after being captivated by her beautiful smile. Mark decided not to ask for help and to do everything himself, just like on the 4th floor. She is very smart, but she hasn't passed the test yet, as if she is deliberately stalling for time. They both suspect each other and therefore get distracted by the main task. Mark asked the girl to step aside, because he had completed his mission and wanted to help her. Only when they both complete this task will the portal to the next floor be opened. Time was getting shorter and shorter, but at the last moment Mark overcame all difficulties. He said that he doesn't want hugs because he knows that the girl is just pretending to be stupid. Jennifer is much more cunning than she seems. Even 5 seconds would be enough for her to complete all the tasks. He knows all this from the video that told about his future in the tower. Back then, she also pretended to be stupid, but apparently nothing has changed at all now. Jennifer laughed and realized what was happening. Mark was going through the test for the 2nd time. It's just a guess, but Jennifer's followers share her opinion. Mark tried to justify himself, but Jennifer wasn't going to believe his fairy tales. She recently purchased a replay coupon and was able to watch Mark's previous challenge. It was not noticeable that he was here for the 2nd time, because the guy was too nervous. It's more likely that he just knows a lot about the tower, and now she's going to keep a closer eye on him. A witch can create a lot of problems, and therefore any conflict should be avoided. Mark is ready to tell her everything, but first she must give him her cloak, no matter how strange it may sound. Perverts immediately appeared among her subscribers, who began to evaluate her hips and exposed stomach. In fact, this cloak had a mana-enhancing function, and Mark knew this very well. Now he is ready to tell everything, and it is not about reincarnation or regression. He knows more about the tower structure than anyone else, and is now ready to share some information. The tower's structure defies logic. Without donations from spectators, it is practically impossible to climb the tower. Thus, viewers become a group of overwhelming force, and streamers beg for mercy. If the guy screws up, then without the support of the audience, he will be forced to suffer and die alone. Mark knows everything about the tower, and this is the secret of his successful actions. This answer is not very satisfactory, because he did not explain how he learned all this information. Mark explained that it was a secret, and he just had to explain how he managed to pass the tests. Jennifer is a great manipulator. She knows very well how to behave with men. All you have to do is say a few phrases, look down at the floor, show tears, and fix your hair, and she gets everything she wants. Now there is no doubt that she is a witch, but Mark is ready for any form of manipulation. He didn't even listen to her and immediately moved to the next floor, where they were already waiting for him. Now he can watch broadcasts of beginner streamers, but only experienced players can watch him. You need to hide your identity and look around a bit, because it's still unclear what exactly the mission is. All around one could see a bustling city with crowded streets. He immediately felt that something was wrong here, and soon saw confirmation of this. An ordinary girl accidentally hit a nobleman, and this attracted the attention of the crowd. A crowd of people gathered around, and it seemed as if a public execution was about to take place. Nothing like that happened. The nobleman helped the girl and said that it was just an accident. This empire is run by Michael Topros, a role Mark played in the past. His appearance on the previous floors had an impact on the entire surrounding world. When he watched the video, he met the administrator in this park. Perhaps history will repeat itself. He was then offered the role of administrator, and Mark happily accepted. Now he recognized this man. Although the man had played the role of a detached pigeon fan until the very end, a little later he had a vision and recognized the scene and its sound. He just spoke with the administrator, and now he sees unknown men in a fortress. It seems they are preparing for war, raising their morale, and getting ready to hit the road. Apparently this is a location called Taruha, where the 15th floor test took place. This place was destroyed by demonic forces. The knights never stopped the monsters. Users who reached this level had no chance against such creatures. The battle was pointless, because it was impossible to resist death. Endless monsters appear endlessly from the giant flower. The waves never end. The nightmare will end only after the complete fall of Taruk, when everyone is destroyed. Soon the vision ended. Mark returned to the central park of the empire. Apparently the administrator is too eager to gain power over him. But Mark will not change his decision. He will not be an administrator under any circumstances and wants his decision to be respected. Apparently he doesn't understand at all why he saw a video of the future. But the administrator can tell everything. In fact, the world of Astral was not created for the entertainment of users. There were other people here who wanted to become an administrator. But this position can only be filled by one person. This man did everything in his power. He brought order to the world of Astral again and again. But everything always falls apart. As soon as one problem is solved, a new one immediately arises, and it's an endless cycle. He doesn't even remember how he became an administrator. Too much time has passed. There was not a single feeling or emotion left in him. He became empty and heartless. Every administrator will go crazy sooner or later. It's an inevitable reality. Mark was able to change the world around him better than others. He fixed everything and did not destroy anything. Everything that was shown in the video was his future as an administrator, or rather his past. He sent himself a video, although Mark is sure that he is a completely different person. After the test on the 5th floor, the atmosphere on the 10th floor changed, and there's a reason for that. The reason is that Mark is the best administrator, and only he can fix the world around him. Mark showed him the middle finger and said that all these beautiful words would not change his decision. One of our hero's main subscribers is a girl who constantly finances him. When she saw the witch, she almost destroyed her screen out of jealousy. Her name is Carol. She is Mark's first subscriber, and is also known by her nickname, Love. Meanwhile, the administrator realized that Mark was unable to conduct a dialogue. He turned into a dove and flew away. But this was not their last meeting. Apparently the previous video was actually sent to me by the administrator, and by Mark himself. I wonder what happened to him. I'll have to find answers to all these difficult questions. Mark decided to change the channel. The surrounding world will not change. Only the users of the tower will change. The location and people of the empire will remain the same, but there will still be some minor changes. Mark immediately went to the workshop to see Master Bran. He met an unknown man here and tried to find out where the master was. It seemed that the master was in the Imperial Palace, but this is not a problem. Mark decided to use the workshop and wants Craig to help him. He showed the glove he had made the previous time and said he wanted to fix it. This item contains very dangerous magic. Craig promised to help and repair the artifact. All that remains is to buy a magic stone to check the master's work. Starting from the 10th floor, an auction house appears where you can buy and sell goods. You can only see things that match your level there, so it's hard to find anything interesting. Mark would like to get the bloodstone, but it won't be easy at all. On the way, he was stopped by a young man in knightly armor. He was with a girl. Apparently they were a couple in love who couldn't live without each other. The knight guessed that Mark had gone to the auction house and advised him not to go there. There is no way to see information about the item, and even viewers cannot help. Apparently the knight wants to earn Mark's trust and invite him to his team, because he really needs a magician. He said that he had already gone up to the 12th floor and would help Mark do the same. Starting from the 10th floor, you can return to previous zones and look for team members. Mark refused and tried to push away the girl who grabbed his hand. He doesn't intend to join any teams and doesn't want to continue his lonely path. Mark came to the auction house. It was time to find the magic stone for the Infinity Gauntlet. He confirmed that he had a large supply of money, and they let him inside. The knight and his girlfriend couldn't believe they had just lost the opportunity to work with a rich wizard. Now everything has changed in the Empire. Ordinary people and aristocrats are now on the same wavelength. It's hard to get used to this because it was always different. But now, this is not the most important thing. Mark met an old friend, schoolgirl Teresa, with her incredible martial arts skills. They made a small order and sat down next to each other, but the conversation did not go well at all. Marker said that he would like to buy a magic stone. It is needed for the glove that Teresa has already seen. After a short silence, the girl thanked him for his help on the previous floor. Soon the conversation continued, and Mark tried to find out why she was wearing a school uniform. Apparently, this form holds important memories that will be very difficult to part with. Even in the future video, Teresa always wore a school uniform, and there must be a reason for that. In the future, she will gain incredible power, and having such a friend would be very useful. Mark offered her friendship and said that in the future, he promised to help if necessary. She accepted the request, and after that, it was announced that the auction would soon begin. A lot of people have gathered for the auction. Everyone wants to get the best artifacts first. Raiden will be conducting the auction. He asks everyone to calm down and take their seats. The auction is held for all segments of the population so that everyone is on the same level. The first lot will be the egg of a red earth dragon, which took 3 hunters to obtain. After this, they raffled off a mysterious pendant that belonged to the daughter of the royal family. Mark was immediately prepared to pay any amount of money, because this is exactly what he needed. The red stone in the pendant is the very bloodstone he is looking for. It turned out that he had a competitor who was ready to raise the first proposed bid. This is a well-known lover of luxury, young Lady Grey, from a family that deals in jewelry. Mark sensed that the most interesting part of the auction was about to begin and accepted the challenge. A mental struggle began within him, and at one point he realized that he could no longer continue, because he did not have enough money. A few seconds later, the most attractive bid of the auction was announced, and it came from Teresa. Now a struggle began between Lady Grey and the schoolgirl, and it looked like a war. Soon victory went to Teresa, who paid 30,000 coins for the magic stone. The auction was over. Mark was a little upset, but he had already managed to buy himself a replacement for 6,000. At that moment, Teresa approached him and without answering his questions, gave him the bloodstone. She paid a lot of money for it, and now orders you to accept her expensive gift. She realized that this item was very important to Mark, and so she decided to help him as a way of gratitude. He has helped her a lot in the past, and if they want to be friends, they should continue to help each other. After that, she immediately said goodbye and left, but there is no doubt that they will meet again. Mark doesn't know this girl at all, but in any case, she gave him a valuable gift. Teresa's past remained hazy, but now we have the opportunity to look into that fog. She had never been able to afford a quality school uniform, and this became her dream. At the new school, she was required to wear a uniform, but she honestly admitted that she didn't have the money for it. The school principal said that there was no need to worry about this, because their assistant had already thought of it. He left some money for the students to buy uniforms for the new semester. She tried to understand who this man was, because she really wanted to thank him for his help. Apparently, this is the same guy she bumped into when entering the school. As you've all guessed, it was Mark, and you can understand why she wanted to help him. After this, our hero returned to the master to check the quality of his work. Craig really changed the glove beyond recognition. Even Thanos would be envious. Mark handed over the blood crystal and asked to connect it to the glove. Now the artifact can be used again, but this time it will be much stronger. Mark felt incredibly inspired and already began to dream about future gauntlet battles. He had to go to the 11th floor, but first, it would be nice to get some rest. The portal to the next floor is always open, but thanks to magical effects, no one sees it. Starting from the next floor, there will be a lot of team challenges. So users often form teams. Mark would like to work with those people who have been following him since the first test, because these are people he can trust. It is unknown what the administrator has prepared for him. It is better to immediately prepare for the worst. He wouldn't want to let his teammates down, because other people could get hurt because of him. Now he can choose the level again, and usually, users who have achieved success always increase the difficulty level. Those who did not receive adequate support from the audience are demoted in order to survive. Mark doesn't have to worry about that. He's left the highest level and stepped into the unknown. The portal took him to a very interesting place, a small island in the middle of a boundless ocean. Here he met two knights who were actively shouting at each other and trying to sort everything out. When they saw Mark, they immediately fell silent and thought that he was a wizard. He also analyzed their equipment and realized that in front of him was a two-handed swordsman and a spear wielder. Mark explained that they were mistaken, and in fact he was an ordinary magical engineer. As we know, the tower is very skeptical of magical engineers, but this is only temporary. The girl tried to find optimism, but then she heard that Mark only controlled one auxiliary item. At this point, the test began, and the players prepared to fight dangerous monsters. Most likely, they will be attacked by some kind of marine anaconda or a great white shark with a thirst for killing. Everyone around was shaking with fear, because you never know what awaits you on the high floor. Mark also prepared for battle. He was sure that the administrator would try to destroy him. Soon he heard a familiar sound and saw in front of him the dragon turtle he had already dealt with. Edward and Sandra were clearly not prepared for such a monster, so Mark must take matters into his own hands. He took a step forward, covered his partners with his back, and prepared for a tough fight. He held an axe in his hands, and at the sight of this weapon, the dragon turtle almost went mad with bloodlust. Edward and Sandra immediately started running away, but they were doing a great job of acting as bait. This can be beneficial, as it will keep the monster more distracted. Mark got ready and launched the first attack. Your weapon immediately gave in and broke into several pieces. The dragon turtle screamed furiously, apparently feeling invincible. Thanks to his special glove, Mark quickly repaired the broken weapon. Now the turtle is hiding because he understands that this guy can create some problems. The main thing is not to let her get close to the water, because then it will be difficult to start an underwater battle. On the second floor, he had to use all his strength, But now Mark has become stronger. He only needs to strain a little. The turtle is furious, so you'll have to hurry and finish the mission quickly. The knights were frightened and still did not take part in clearing the 11th floor. They hoped that Mark would do all the dirty work, even though the magical engineer is one of the weakest classes in the tower. Today, they must change their attitude towards this class and understand that everything is individual. Mark showed off his acrobatic skills and then attacked the monster with a powerful blow. The dragon turtle was destroyed, there was a lot of blood around, and a strong smell of smoke could be smelled. The test was passed, and the path to the next floor instantly opened. Mark can also now return to the previous floor in order to find a team there. The knights thanked him for saving them and promised never to underestimate magical engineers again. This time, Mark received coins as a gift, as well as a low-level magic stone. He also now has access to the heroic rank master of the Seven Snakes leather cloak. In it, he will look much more attractive and even a little respectable. Mark decided to stay on this floor again to improve his skills and earn another gift. He destroyed the magical turtle again, and it must be admitted that he did it even faster than last time. After that, he returned to the previous floor to rest a little and think about the future. Here he can give Pops a little time to walk around and also take a quiet rest from missions. Mark acquired several skill books to further develop his relationship with magical beasts. Now he feels Pops much better than before and decided to come up with names for them. One of them will be called Laha, in honor of the goddess of love, who always thought about ordinary people. In honor of the god of courage, one of the Pops will be named Kodin, because he is the bravest of them all and is not afraid to take responsibility. Only the goddess of wisdom remains. One of the Pops will take her name Baron, because she is the most caring of them all. Now their relationship must reach a new level, and in the future, our hero's assistant. After that, he went to the next floor, where a team of 4 people would be assembled. Here he was immediately met by Donald and Nancy, who seemed like quite friendly guys. From the very beginning, it became clear that they already knew each other and had formed their own team on the previous floor. There's also another person here who was looking at Mark in a very strange way. Mark tried to find out the reason for such a look, and the knight replied that Mark recognized him because he was the emperor. I had to quickly order him to shut up and not say anything more unnecessary. Joseph immediately accepted the order, but in doing so, he began to behave even more suspiciously. Mark did not expect to meet one of his viewers who stopped following him after the 9th floor. It turned out that the rest of the team members are not popular and have very few viewers. Somehow they made it to the 12th floor, which is a testament to their talent. Now they have partially given up because they understand that without financial support, it will be difficult to complete the entire tower. The 12th floor will be a tough challenge for melee classes, especially knights. Joseph was kicked out of the team in the past and started looking for support when he saw a stream featuring Mark. He made several donations, and thanks to the progress, Mark was able to earn a huge amount of money. Thus, the equipment was purchased and Joseph was able to reach the 12th floor. To be honest, he is just a newbie with no experience who is lucky to be here. He is grateful to Mark for his help and is now ready to protect him even from other players. Donald plays the role of a knight, while Nancy chose the assassin class, and her skills are a little weaker in battles with magical beasts. It was decided to draw up a plan. Joseph said that he considered himself the ideal article. He quickly explained what needed to be done and the task to each team member, relying on his own intuition. Most likely, their rivals will be yetis or poisonous dogs, so you need to be very careful. Donald said he'd never heard such a stupid plan. You're not going to follow a rookie's orders. They don't seem to be too keen on cooperating, even though that's the key task on this floor. Mark can clear out all the monsters on his own. Joseph understands this perfectly well, and he relies on his comrade. Time is almost up. We need to prepare for the monster attack and take positions. From afar, it was already clear that unidentified objects were approaching them. It was a small army of yetis. The guys are very large and aggressive, and also have wild endurance. Joseph immediately grabbed his sword, but he was very nervous, because he lacked experience. Mark tried to calm the guy down and promised to take care of his health. Donald turned out to be crazy. He was the first to rush into the attack and decided to demonstrate his courage. More often than not, such brave guys die first. Let's see what happens now. All teamwork was destroyed, and whoever broke the rules would undoubtedly suffer. Such confidence could take him up to the 10th floor, but the further he goes, the more he needs to use his brain. By this time, experience should have already appeared. Brute force does not always help in battle. Donald soon realized that he was wrong. It would have been better to be with the team and act together. Yetis live in the northern part of the 15th floor. They become weaker with age and die without their leader. Instead of feeling fear, their desire not to die is transformed into the will to fight. They want to prove that they are not old yet, and therefore they fight with incredible cruelty. Simple attacks won't work against beasts like these. Something more is needed. Donald tried his best, but his skills didn't work. He felt weak and prepared to accept the inevitable punishment for his stupidity. A little more, and he would have said goodbye to life. But at the last moment, Mark saved him. Now this guy must reconsider his views on life and learn to work in a team. Mark is more experienced and knows how to fight against strong and powerful monsters. You need to act incredibly quickly, otherwise the monster will lose the initiative. With his powerful blow, he sent the leader towards his creator, and he didn't even break a sweat. Now all the other yetis are no longer so confident in their abilities, because their captain is dead. The fighting spirit immediately weakened. All that remained was to take advantage of the moment and clear the area. The battle continued for the next few minutes, with Mark single-handedly managing to defeat all the monsters around him. The test was passed, the path to the 12th floor was opened, as well as the opportunity to return to the 10th floor. Everyone around thanked their hero. Only Donald could not raise his head because of pride and shame. Finally, he looked at Mark and asked him one last question. When he fought the leader of the monsters, the Yeti called him Sumeha, and Donald wants to understand what it means. This word was the first thing Mark heard in the future video, which means that the monster called him a child. This will further destroy his self-esteem, or on the contrary, will force him to reconsider his views on life. The players went their separate ways, each with new adventures awaiting them. Even those who see Mark for the first time cannot help but fall in love with his skills and dedication. Joseph also said goodbye to his hero and said that he hoped to see him again. As a gift to you, Mark, I received not only money, but also a book on sword art. He decided to go back to the 10th floor, change his channel, and then increase the level. Soon the time came to experience new difficulties. And now you can forget about the warm forest or the hot island. Mark found himself in a very cold place, where he was immediately greeted by other players. He changed the channel, and therefore is unlikely to meet any of his old acquaintances here. The first one he greeted was the bald knight. His name is Alejandro, and he is quite friendly. He promised to introduce Mark to the rest of the team, of which there are quite a lot here. Mark pretended to be happy to meet new people, but in reality, everything is not so simple. From the very beginning, he realized that everyone around him was completely unfamiliar, and the situation was very confusing. The Black Scorpion is one of the vile clans that commits villainous acts. They come to trials where a lot of people are needed, pretend to be strangers, and act friendly. The participant lets down his guard, and then they will definitely take all his money, and perhaps even kill him. Those who don't have the support of a team end up with them, and therefore the Black Scorpion is not afraid of the consequences. For now they treat him kindly, probably thinking that he is easy prey. A little later, the last participant appeared, named Jake, who had survived the difficult test on the previous floor. They started laughing at him. Apparently no one understood what he was facing. Alejandro ordered everyone to take their places, because the test would soon begin. Today we will have to fight with poisonous dogs, and this is not an easy walk at all. Jake offered to retreat, but they refused to listen to him and called him a coward. The poisonous dogs immediately began to attack their victims, and the Scorpion's team members froze in place. Mark had to intervene and destroy one of the dogs, which he did almost instantly. This guy didn't show unnecessary emotions, and instead of using beautiful words, he acted quickly and clearly. Monsters began to attack him from all sides, but even now his body did not flinch. Everything that happened next can be called the art of destroying dangerous monsters. If Mark had wanted, he could easily have written a best-selling book on clearing territory and made a ton of money. It feels like he's much more dangerous than the monsters, and everyone around him has realized it. The magical dogs have very well-developed intuition. They immediately sensed that Mark was the most dangerous of them all. Alejandro looked closely at Mark and asked him if he was a hunter or a criminal. It's hard to believe that Mark is truly a magical engineer. It feels like it's just a fairy tale. Alejandro said that his team should not be underestimated, because they can punish you severely for this. They've destroyed overconfident fools before, but they've never met the wielder of the Infinity Gauntlet. In order to demonstrate his full potential, Mark turned his attention to monsters. He wants to use his glove and show who's boss here. The clearing of the area was completed in literally a minute, and all of this was done by one person. His new gauntlet is more stable, although its combat power is slightly weaker than the previous version. The glove consumes less energy, so if used correctly, it can help you pass many tests. At this moment, there was another member of the Black Scorpion team in the tree. It was an experienced Sicario, who was waiting for the moment to make a deadly attack. Mark had sensed his presence a few minutes ago, and was therefore prepared for any turn of events. The test was passed, and the Sicario was destroyed, barely having time to attack. As soon as the portal opened, all the Black Scorpion members immediately began to run and save themselves. Mark managed to block their path and said that he would like to talk first, and only then go their separate ways. He is only willing to let Mr. Jake go, while everyone else must stay for a lecture. He's not going to let them go just like that, so if they don't want to die, they'll have to pay dearly. There's no misunderstanding here, because if they were ordinary bandits, Mark would not have remembered their name. The Black Scorpion will soon begin to commit an even greater crime than take on the 20th floor and gain infamous fame. Therefore, it is better to immediately put them in their place and show that not all of their sins will be forgiven. Mark is determined to stop this group's criminal activities, and he is willing to do anything to do it. Apparently, some of them have not yet lost their optimism, and I think they will be able to overcome his numbers. Therefore, the most impudent participant of the Black Scorpion must be punished first. If he is a big fan of talking, then you need to deprive him of his tongue. This way, no one will have any doubt that there's only one boss here. Mark decided that enough of the bullying had happened, and that he needed to take advantage of the moment. He called the team leader Alejandro and invited him to be his friend. Alejandro is called a thug, as revealed in the future video, and he may be a useful ally in the future. Mark also wants to make some money, because it would be stupid to let these guys go without reparations. The system works in such a way that it is impossible to take away much money, and after death, the coins disappear along with the corpse. Coins can only be transferred through trade, so even the Black Scorpion uses complex methods to steal coins. Mark watched a video of the future and knows what will happen on the 20th floor. Then Alejandro confesses that he hid the magic stone on the 10th floor when he was in a hurry to escape from the guards. A stone like that costs tens of thousands, and even though Alejandro says it's a lie, Mark knows everything. Alejandro prepared himself for the death of his comrades, and just in case, he kept an ace up his sleeve. If they lose all their coins, he can find the stone and sell it on the black market. Mark is ready to take all the Black Scorpion coins, and in exchange not to touch the magic stone. He wants to earn the maximum amount of money and punish every member of this group. He also took their potions. It is known that they can be useful on the next floors. After the Black Scorpion went bankrupt, Mark promised to let them go. Of course, these were just beautiful words, and after them, he killed every member of the team. He left only Alejandro alive to ask him a few more questions. The Black Scorpion still exists, and some members of the gang are preparing for their next challenges. Mark cut off his leg and sent him to the next test, the labyrinth, so that Alejandro would die in agony. Now he will go to the 14th floor himself, where luck should play a decisive role. This test will hardly be called teamwork, because there's a labyrinth of evil there. The participants had already gathered and began to discuss the future strategy. You need to understand how exactly you need to act, either as a team or individually. The first thing Mark did was meet Robert, the team captain and its oldest member. Then he was introduced to the rest of the team: Fordman, Ricky, Cuddy, and Chris. Judging by the atmosphere, this is a fairly experienced team that has already gone through many tests. Initially, there were 6 of them, but one of them was seriously injured and temporarily left the team to recover. After everyone had gotten acquainted, it was time to discuss the future strategy. Mark knows the format of the challenge, but the maze is constantly changing, so luck is key. The labyrinth is filled with tangled paths. If you reach a dead end, you will encounter magical beasts and traps. You need to get to the center of the labyrinth by any means possible. This is the main task. It is impossible to suggest a strategy, because the labyrinth is constantly changing. All that remains is to figure out how to act, start all together, or go our separate ways. It is unknown which path will be the easiest, so going alone is very dangerous. Mark thought that walking with the team could be even worse because of the use of the glove. In the tight space, he could injure one of the players, so he suggested going alone. Robert loudly refused such an offer and said that he would not allow him to commit suicide. Even if he is not a member of their team, they still do not want to sacrifice him for the sake of success. Mark insisted that he would not go anywhere with the rest of the team, and Robert had to accept it. Finally, they gave him a secret liquid that could help in a critical moment. So they split up, the team heading west and Mark going north. In the labyrinth, you can encounter various monsters, even those of a low level. Robert's team acted confidently and harmoniously. Their experience was immediately felt. Even now, their conscience torments them, and they try to predict Mark's actions. It's obvious that he's confident in his abilities, especially after clearing the previous floor alone. Robert is confident that Mark will stop halfway and wait for support. At school, they began to have their first problems, because monsters were constantly attacking. Weapons and protective equipment began to break, and players also felt tired. Some had already begun to think about death, but at that moment they heard a strange sound. There was a wall in front of them, and it was destroyed by some powerful magical artifact. When the dust cleared, they saw in front of them the same guy who had been going through the labyrinth alone. When Mark headed north, he decided to give the Pops a little walk. It turned out that there was magical power in the wall, and the monsters immediately sensed it. They began to eat everything around them, thereby making the path through the labyrinth easier. Soon, Mark heard the voice of Team Robert and saw that they were fighting monsters. Robert and company immediately ran to save him, and the Pops helped him with this. After that, he said goodbye and left, although everyone around thought that they would now unite. Now he and his little animals will go towards the light and complete the test. The Pops easily destroy all obstacles in their path, and so the labyrinth turns into a children's game. Soon he approached the beam of light that marked the end of the labyrinth. As soon as he touched this beam, he automatically saw a notification that the test had been passed. It should also be noted that when one player passes the test, the entire team is automatically transferred to the next floor. Thus, with his victory, Mark helped the entire Robert team achieve their goal. When they found themselves together, Robert immediately began hugging his savior. He hugged him with all his knightly strength and almost broke all of Mark's ribs. Thanks to this guy, the team got through the test without losses, and that's why it's hard to contain your emotions. Soon they went their separate ways, and Mark prepared for the challenge of the 15th floor. He has to go to the northern part of Astral, where he gains skills, completes tasks, and grows. If the administrator doesn't intervene, everything should go perfectly, because the mission will be quite simple. Mark immediately remembered the vision he saw when he met with the administrator. This may not be an illusion at all, and then we will have to face serious problems. As a reward, a two-handed sword, 1,000 coins, and a mana stone were received. Mark also received several donations from subscribers, and then prepared to enter the portal. First, he wants to go to the 10th floor, and then begin a new mission. The first thing you need to do is visit the Astral Empire's Travel Control Center. He wants to know where the residence of the Black Scorpion clan is. He will soon meet Black Scorpions, and this is exactly what he needs. After a short walk around the city, he finally found a dark alley that suited the clan's character. He knocked on the door and was told that there was no one there, so it was decided to enter by force. To start the search, you need to ask for help from the Pops, who know what to do. They soon found a chest of precious crystals, and that was exactly what Mark wanted to see. He took most of the treasure for himself, but also did not forget to share it with his little killers. After this, Mark sold everything that did not bring any benefit. The sphere, the mace, the fencing skill book, the backpack, and even the two-handed sword. All of this was sold for a nice price. He now has over 80,000 coins in his account, and this opens up new opportunities. To cope with the cold in northern lands, you need to take care of thermoregulation in clothing. You will also have to learn some knightly skills, because you can't forget about developing your physical abilities. Mark entered the portal, but when he found himself on the next floor, he didn't quite recognize the place. Users should appear at the Trials Fountain in the center of the city. Apparently, I ended up in the northern region, but it feels like this is all just a trap set up by the administrator. It is located in Taruha, a country of valiant warriors that is on the front lines of the fight against magical monsters. Mark must find the desired power and receive the task, and after that the portal to the Fountain of Trials will open. As soon as he opened the door, he immediately saw in front of him a huge warrior whom he had never met before. Mark said that he is a traveler and would be glad to meet new people. Before him is a warrior named Pala, who is famous for his mighty health. As soon as he shook Mark's hand, he immediately demonstrated incredible strength. Palash saw in the traveler incredible strength and all the qualities of a warrior. From such a courageous handshake, Mark even lost his composure and fell to the floor. It's a pretty aggressive greeting, but apparently this guy doesn't know how to introduce himself with words. Apparently this is a kind of test, because everyone who comes here from the Empire is always too weak. Hatred for the Empire runs deep in the heart of this legendary warrior. This hatred arose after the death of his child, which occurred due to a small dispute with the Empire. Now this hatred is not contained by any borders, and it even affects ordinary travelers who pass by. Pala is the leader of the Sun Warriors and also the best warrior of Taruk. He is considered a legend in this country and also has the worst personality on the entire floor. In the last war, he lured the Empire's warriors here and then destroyed them with a huge cannon. Then he showed a huge plant that grows near the castle. From this plant emerge huge monsters that cause Taruk a lot of trouble. We have to get magic stones and load them into huge cannons. This is the only way to stop the monsters that are constantly trying to destroy everything around them. This world is cursed, it repeats itself again and again, and only memories remain. Unlike the 5th floor, the inhabitants of Taruk remember the fall of their kingdom. They have already memorized the ending, which is repeated countless times. The core of the organism sucks out all the life force around itself and then blossoms. Demonic creatures appear, which leads to the complete destruction of Taruk. Mark said that he wants to become a warrior of the legendary captain and is ready to serve his army. In response, Pala started laughing out loud, as if he hadn't taken the guy's words seriously. Most people die in less than a few minutes when a battle with monsters begins. First, Mark must complete small tasks and then take part in the battle. Yes, his level would be perfectly suited to hunting wild boar in the Red Molar. It's a wonderful test. The most interesting thing is that the main mission has already begun, but this was not supposed to happen. Mark must destroy the organism's heart and cannot leave the floor until he completes the task. He didn't understand at all what was happening, but if the task was not completed, Taruha would be destroyed. Given the difficulty of this floor, even if the entire army works together, it will be virtually impossible to win. Mark had known about this from the very beginning, and now he was finally faced with this insurmountable obstacle. He said goodbye to the commander and went to prepare for the upcoming battle. It is obvious to him that the administrator is trying to create problems for him again. There is approximately a month left before the start of the test, during which time the body's heart blossoms. If the task is not completed, Mark will die, but it is possible that other users also receive this task. They must be located near the Fountain of Trials, in which case it will be possible to unite into one team. As Mark walked down the street, a dark silhouette could be seen in one of the windows. Soon a man ran out of the house, fell on his knees, and began to beg to stop the monsters from attacking. He asked the savior for help and tried with all his might to persuade Mark to defeat the monsters. To save Taruk, the admin created a premise that one day a traveler would appear who would save everyone. He conveyed this message to the inhabitants that if they waited, they would eventually escape their hellish fate. Now they firmly believe in it because this hope was their only source of mental support. For the users, it is just a part of the tower that they must pass through, but the people of Taruk believe in them. Now we need to focus on the test, because this is the most difficult mission that Mark has ever gone through. He went to the Fountain of Trials and found many users there. David and Maria were glad to see him because he was the only one missing to complete the team. The most interesting thing is that when users checked their tasks, they noticed that they had nothing. None of them had received their assignment yet. None except Mark. This means that they are just bystanders, and no matter what happens, they are unlikely to help. It will be difficult to get help with the heart killing, so you need to come up with a special plan. All that remains is to become stronger, because very difficult trials will soon begin. Mark wants to find the place Palak spoke of and go there right now. Among the snow-capped mountains, there is a large house guarded by trained dogs. This house belongs to the captain, who hopes that Mark has solved all the problems. In fact, he just came to talk, so he went into the house and met Chalet. She is the captain's husband and has already prepared dinner for the men and invited Mark to the table. As soon as everyone sat down at the table, Chalet immediately began to press her husband, because she does not like it when he is doing nonsense in the castle. It was hard to believe that such a strong and powerful man was henpecked. Soon they went into the next room to talk alone. There, she told him that she adores her wife and also cannot live without her beloved dogs. For them, this story repeats itself over and over again, but they continue to live these meaningless lives. All that remains is to cling to the absurd belief in the existence of a savior and live life on repeat. There is no other way out, you just need to believe and wait for the savior to come. The captain asked Mark to get some sleep and gain strength, because a big battle awaited them in the future. Now he doesn't have time to train and he can't do all this nonsense. We must do everything possible to raise the level, otherwise Mark will be forced to die in Taruha. The next day the captain suggested that we practice a little, since this was the only way to be prepared for trouble. Mark said that he would like to learn the skills of wielding an axe, since he is most familiar with this weapon. This is the weapon that Taruk's warriors possess, and this is what Palace specializes in. There is no time to talk about this now and ordered to immediately prepare for sparring. The battle began within a few seconds, and Mark was not quite ready for it. He wasn't even warned before the start. Apparently, the captain got too carried away by the excitement. He said that you can't talk too much, because during the battle, there won't even be time to breathe fresh air. It must be admitted that his punches are very powerful, and he is truly a worthy opponent. At first, Mark couldn't start his attack, because he was constantly thinking about defense. It feels like he's fighting a monster, even though even a dragon turtle isn't that strong. He admitted that he could no longer continue and fell to the ground, having reached his limit. The system notified him that he had learned a new skill, the martial art of Taruk. It took quite a lot of effort, but in any case, Mark got what he wanted. Although it is not specified in the system, users are accustomed to dividing skills into two main types. Active skills have to be activated using large reserves of energy. Passive skills can be used constantly and do not require much effort. Passive skills are usually built up through repeated use of the same actions. This skill does not consume mana or aura, and increases the user's ability to fight while fatigued. Now he may be ready to continue, because he already understands what Taruk's martial art means. If the captain wanted to fight so badly, then let's see how good he is in equal combat conditions. As soon as Mark's speed and power increased, he immediately began to imitate all of the captain's actions. He felt invincible and overestimated his skills. We must not forget that he just got this technique, and it is much better to take small but confident steps. He asked to let go of his hand, but it was unlikely that such a bloodthirsty captain would agree to reconciliation. It was a brutal beating, but it is in training like this that true Spartans are forged. In this way, I improved my martial arts skills over the next few days. Now we need to concentrate on the main thing and destroy the hearts of the monsters. The captain knows that Mark came here for this very reason and would like to help him in every possible way. Now his most important task is to stop the curse of Taruk and save the people here. The heart of the organism is the source of destruction that led to the fall of Taruk. The admin intervened in this matter, and he is doing everything to prevent Mark from achieving his goal. An interesting conversation took place in the central pub this morning. Rumors quickly spread that the Sun Warrior had invited the traveler to his home. Warrior Leto felt hungover and did not pay attention to all these rumors. His friend and assistant, the warrior Karen, even said that the captain and the traveler had sparred together. Leto decided to meet this traveler and take a look at this self-confident guy. Although Karen did not want to go with him, Leto was his commander, and orders were not discussed. They approached the captain's house and realized that they needed to hide immediately. Before their eyes, a real sparring took place between the traveler and the captain. At first, it seemed that the captain controlled the force and allowed the traveler to act freely. But then the warriors remembered that the captain had never been able to do this, and therefore the traveler was truly serious. It feels like this is an unusual guy, because his movements are similar to those of the warrior Taruk. Soon they came into the light and greeted the captain and his guest. Thus they met Mark, who let his little animals out for a walk. Halak was happy because he had been thinking all morning about calling for help. They, together with Mark, decided to go to battle with the heart of the monsters, and they need support. Leto was surprised by such a task, but no one has the right to refuse the captain. He is ready to set out on his journey, but first he would like to personally experience the power of the arrogant traveler. Mark has been getting too many challenges lately, and that has made him stronger. This experience will not hurt him, so he is ready to fight with the experienced warrior Taruha. Summer approached and dealt a crushing blow. At that moment, he looked like a beast. Mark managed to react and defend himself, but felt the power and speed of his opponent. He quickly found himself without a weapon, having lost his concentration and underestimated Leto. Because he uses the power of the cloak, experienced warriors underestimate him and call him a coward. They don't understand that this is just a trick, and Mark has a very serious counterattack in store for the future. His cloak seemed to come to life and wrapped around his opponent's arms, along with his large axe. Mark would be perfect for the role of Venom now, because his cape is almost like a symbiote. A few more seconds and the experienced warrior will get several holes in his neck and bleed like a pig. The captain intervened in the battle in time because he realized that the situation had reached its peak. It is important to remember that this is just a friendly match and no one should be allowed to get hurt. It's time to hit the road and try to challenge the inevitable fate. It should be fun, although each of the warriors understands that this day could be their last. They soon encountered the ice giants while they were planning to take a little rest. There were dozens of these monsters, and that's not what you want to see while on vacation. The captain enjoys challenges and always smiles when he sees strong opponents. If you think that you can scare such an experienced warrior with a simple scream, then you are a big mistake. In response, he will not only not be scared, but will start screaming like a mad gorilla, which will scare anyone. Karen asked Mark to stay put and said that it was too dangerous for him to fight the monsters. Warriors must take on all the danger, because for them, encounters with ice monsters are commonplace. Mark would like to take part, but he is stubbornly underestimated no matter what. The captain also returned. He said that his assistants would easily deal with these worms. Rumor has it that Taruk's children are not sent to kindergarten at all, but to the cold forest to fight monsters. When they are hungry, and they prepare dinner for me, they force me to kill wild boars myself. The result is something like Spartans, psychopathic killers with nerves of steel. It's best not to get into conflict with these guys, but if you need support in battle, you won't find anyone better than them. These two complement each other perfectly. It's clear that they have been working together for many years. Mark relaxed a little, and because of this, he did not notice the approaching danger at all. His special symbiote cloak intervened in time and dissolved his opponent in a second. The same thing happened to those who stood in front of him and tried to understand what was happening. Apparently our hero has a new favorite weapon, and now he will use it more often. The monster clearing soon came to an end, but Leto immediately sensed something was wrong. Previously, ice monsters spent all their time deep in the mountains, but now they have descended too low. Mark understood that this was connected with the body, although the administrator could be behind all of this. It usually takes a year for the body's heart to regenerate. Mark has already managed to analyze Taru's body and feels that he still has 6 months left before he reaches full bloom. He will be able to destroy it only then, but this city will be destroyed much earlier, and all because of Palak. He met him when he was watching a video about the future. It is he who will fire a magical cannon from the castle walls into the heart of the organism, and will also attack personally and cause a commotion. To recover from the wounds it has received, the heart will begin to aggressively absorb the life force of the earth. The body uses all remaining strength after recovery for its growth. It is unlikely that the captain did not know about this, because such events are repeated again and again. It is a vicious circle. Ask Karen a question and ask if the city's residents know about the captain's actions. He said that he couldn't be sure, turned around and walked away in the other direction, avoiding the answer. Judging by his reaction, it is clear that there are not many people in Taruha who are capable of containing the spread of information. There's always a lot of snow around this city, but it is always warm inside, and the captain is sure there's an explanation for this. The city is home to an incredibly beautiful and warm stone, which lies deep underground. It is used not only by the great magical engineers of the kingdom, but also by the technicians of the empire. Thanks to him, secret devices are created, and that is why there is no snow in the city, and I do not live in warmth. The story soon ended, as the warriors felt they were getting closer to their goal. There is an incredible smell of death all around, which cannot be compared to anything similar. There's only one living plant around, and from it you can hear a soothing sound, like in the womb. It seems like someone has already been here. The ice giants shouldn't have allowed someone to take their place. There is a battlefield environment here, but there are no bodies. Apparently the organism absorbed everything that was around. Karen suggested going back home, since there were no monsters here and no one to fight. Mark is not going to rush home, on the contrary. He needs to gather as much information as possible from Palak. He approached the roots of the plant and touched them, immediately feeling incredible emotions. It is clearly felt that life has not worn, although the heart looks like a plant. But in fact, this is not entirely true. This thing is alive, and it absorbs all life around it, and the captain cannot turn a blind eye to it. The plant has taken root near his house and is trying to destroy all of Taruk. Only Mark and the captain approached the plant. The rest of the warriors stayed behind, as they were afraid of trouble. The captain was not used to talking for long. If he came here, it was only to destroy everything. He delivered a powerful blow to the center of the plant and crushed its defense. First, he destroyed the ice giants, and now he killed the hearts of the monsters with one blow. Oddly enough, within just a few seconds, the plant stopped completely. As if this was precisely what the captain did not want to prove, he hinted that they would all die and there was no chance of salvation. Apparently, Mark really won't be able to get out of here, because it's practically impossible to complete this mission. He saw black drops appearing from the plant, which began the process of transformation. Within seconds, these drops turned into monsters called cleaners. This is good news for the captain, since he hasn't killed anyone for several seconds. Soon he delivered several powerful blows and destroyed the enemies. The cleanup didn't take much time. The number of monsters wasn't enough to stop experienced warriors. Since the Sun Commander is here, there are no problems, because every move he makes wipes the enemy off the face of the earth. This huge organism sucks up all the mountain's energy for its own restoration and becomes stronger. Even if nothing is done, Taruha will still be destroyed, no matter how long it takes. Events repeat themselves 1,000 times, but Mark still does not lose hope. If I were to go back home right now, this whole journey would be pointless. You need to try to at least do something and get something other than the feeling of helplessness. Mark took out his magic glove and prepared to take final measures. It is necessary to destroy everything to the point that the plants cannot recover. Right as the bud opens, Mark will strike a powerful blow, risking the entire mission. The problem is that if he fails, the heart will begin to grow even faster and quickly destroy Taruk. If you do nothing, the body will continue to become stronger every day, and the same thing will happen. It's a hopeless situation, and apparently the administrator has given him a death sentence for refusing his offer. He's going to do everything possible, risk his whole life for the slightest chance of success. It was an incredibly powerful blow that took all of Mark's strength. He lost so much energy that his body began to fail. At that moment, some unknown monster, created a few minutes earlier, appeared from the plant. The heart senses danger. It has not yet grown fully, but it already knows how to protect you. If the monster keeps growing bigger and bigger, the captain and his warriors will be able to help. Mark felt himself falling into the depths of the plant, which meant that the end awaited him. He said goodbye to his subscribers and thanked them for their continued support. The awakened ones who were watching the broadcast at that moment were shocked and were beside themselves with excitement. A huge explosion occurred inside the plant, and pools of black blood appeared around it. I saw that the plant regenerates quickly, and therefore his attack has practically no chance of success. At that moment, his bag unzipped, and out came the crying and loving Pops. At first, he wanted to drive them back, but then an interesting episode occurred that will go down in history. The dolls were born from fragments of the world tree. They contain energy that is opposite to the demon kingdom. Just touching the heart of the disaster brings them incredible pain, but they do everything to help their beloved father, who cared for and loved them. All that remains is to help the Pops and deliver the final blow, losing all their powers. I have never felt such power from a plant. Regeneration immediately slowed down. Mark began to spit blood. Blood came out of his ears and nose. He lost all his vitality. The body relaxed. The desire to destroy the admin disappeared somewhere, and he prepared for death. A few hours later, Taruk's warriors lit a fire and decided to roast some meat. There were 3 of them, but next to them there was a 4th person who did not belong to their city. It was the same traveler who came to the city to try to stop the vicious circle of disasters. He couldn't believe that he was still alive, and even the Pops didn't react to his awakening. It looks like they are infected, and we will have to go up several levels to save them from the disease. Only holy water can purify demonic energy. It is sold on the 20th floor. When it was all over, the captain climbed inside the flower and pulled the traveler out. Mark was upset. It was his fault that the destruction of the city was approaching. It is obvious that the heart of the disaster is still alive, which means that the disaster is getting closer. The captain tried to calm the traveler and handed him a piece of fried meat. It's not exactly what I wanted at the moment, but it's better than nothing. At that moment, Mark thought about that very sunstone that the captain had spoken about. Perhaps this stone is the key to saving the world from disaster, and the queen should know its location. Mark came up with a plan of action very quickly, and it all sounded pretty logical. He wants to get the sunstone and then place it in the infinity gauntlet to attack the plant. The sunstone is stronger than 12,000 bloodstones. Karan stated, Mark understands that he could die with this skill activation. It's better this way than dying at the hands of monsters. Mark decided to take a rest, but first he found a large mana stone in his bag. The Pops should have been delighted with such an energetic snack, but now they didn't react at all. Soon the warriors returned home, and the captain was able to arrange a meeting with the queen. Mark asked the captain to take the Pops with him, because they needed peace and comfort. After this, they went to meet the queen. A lot depended on this meeting. The flower has a few days left before it blooms. If the sunstone is not obtained, Taruha will be destroyed. Mark addressed the audience and said that he needed a lot of coins right now. The audience is just as much a player as he is, and they understand that Mark could die here. Coins are vital to climb the tower. If the user dies, the money will go down the drain, and it will be very unprofitable. Therefore, subscribers who donated to Mark must do so again, otherwise they will lose their previous investments. He promised to show subscribers how to get to the 20th floor for a minimal price. After the matter was settled, it was time to meet the great Queen Taruha. The ruler of the north looked quite confident. She was no longer young, but her eyes were still filled with life. She understands that he is not here for fun, but she also knows that it is difficult to change the fate of the city. Mark said that he knew the secret of the sunstone and asked to give him one chance. The queen immediately warned him that if he deceived her, he would quickly regret it. Queen Klein has an iron grip. One mistake and Mark will be left headless. The sunstone is said to have been given by the god of victory, Anian, because he felt pity for the people of Taruk who were suffering from the cold. They asked for help and they froze to death before his eyes, so he gave them a stone. All these stories had no effect on the queen, but then Mark said that he knew who her son was. After this, the queen began to take him seriously and agreed to listen. She is the mother of Thomas Topros, whose story we know very well. For political reasons, the queen was forced to go to the cold north. Since she has to deal with savages, she received the sunstone from her son, out of pity. If she refuses to help, then everyone around will find out the truth, and the whole myth around the stone will burst. On the other hand, the queen can kill him right here and now and solve all her problems. Subscribers are on edge as this self-confident guy is walking on a knife edge. Mark said that if he died, his friends would definitely take revenge and real chaos would begin. After long negotiations, the queen finally decided to help this self-confident scoundrel. He got the chance to take the sunstone in his hands and try to destroy the death plant. The queen said that the stone was in Captain Palaz's house, which was completely unexpected. It is clear that the captain could not give the stone to the first person he met, but still, He could take a risk and trust Mark from the very beginning. The pop stars look even worse. They are unlikely to die, but they need to drink holy water quickly. Now they don't even respond to their names or petting. All you can do is believe. The captain and Mark went into the home library. Palak read all these books, although there are more than 2,000 of them. It is here that the Sunstone is kept, in a secret room hidden from view. Mark understood that the captain was a very secretive person, but he didn't expect that everything would be so bad. Soon he saw an incredibly bright ray of sunlight, but it was just a stone. It is stored in a special container underground, and thanks to this stone, the city is very warm. Soon Mark received the Sunstone in his hands. Now he must destroy the demonic flower. The captain is ready to join the battle. He is sure that his assistants will not refuse either. Everyone wants to take part in something global and try to change the course of history. Apparently, this is personal for the captain, and every day he falls asleep with thoughts of destroying the demonic plant. Mark said goodbye to the captain and said that he would definitely do everything to save Taruk. After this, the captain called his assistants and said that they were declaring war on the demons. Karen went into the house to check on the pops. He had become too attached to them lately. He hoped that they were better, but when he saw them, he could not contain his surprise. The Sun Commander has declared a general assembly and mobilization. The Queen already knows about it. She considers him a fool who cannot escape death. But today's news surprised her. The Sun Captain invited all warriors of the Blue Knight, Bloody Teeth, and White Lands to join him. He wants to awaken the great mind of Taruk. But the Queen does not believe in changing fate. It's time to remember the players David and Maria, whom we met near the fountain. They completed the task from the warriors and received only a regular potion. You work hard for several days and expect much more. But yesterday, all wars gave them incredible tasks and great rewards. Now everything has changed, and they ask you to bring them water, go to the store, or sweep the yard. But at the same time, the system notified that the test was passed and the portal near the fountain was open. David and Maria could not believe that their trials were ending, and they heard rumors about war, and we told her that a storm was moving and that we would have to fight against a demonic plant. The players can leave at any moment, but David really wants to witness something global. He is ready to watch this battle until the very end, risking his life in order to get coins from subscribers. David asked his girlfriend to leave the 15th floor, but she wouldn't go anywhere without him. At this romantic moment, a huge explosion occurred that was impossible to miss. Most likely, Mark got to the magical plant and dealt a crushing blow. At that moment, Mark's very first subscriber, Carol, was lying quietly on the couch. Her friend John came into the room and said that a clan meeting was currently taking place. Apparently, she doesn't care and doesn't intend to be distracted by various meetings. The clan members are leaving the tower and are planning to live in this house forever, but she is not interested. Compared to the situation on the ground, it's much better here, especially after the situation got out of control. Something serious happened on the 10th floor, and now everyone is very annoyed. As soon as John left the room, it became clear why Carol was so nervous. All this time, she has been following her favorite blogger, who drives her crazy. Once the demon's heart is ready to bloom, monsters will start appearing around. He took the sunstone and the glove with him, but it felt like something was missing. All this time, Karan was waiting for him here, although Mark didn't even notice him. He didn't come here empty-handed, but to give away the wounded pops. The spirits were trying to make their way through the cold snow on their own, and he just decided to help. They felt that their master had left and they really wanted to be reunited with him. It's strange that they act this way, although Mark was always sure that he paid too little attention to them. After this, Karen left, and Mark prepared to deal a crushing blow to all the administrator's plans. Even if he is destined to die, he will still do everything to ensure that the administrator suffers. We need to attack the heart of the disaster when Mark is closest. Dangerous monsters had already started appearing around, but the dolls crawled out of the backpack again. At first, he wanted to put them back, but it was too late. He had to act. This time, the power in his hand was abnormal, and all the surrounding nature felt it. The monsters surrounded him from all sides, but today was not their day. It was too late to act. As a ray of light became visible in the sky, Captain Palash smiled and happily announced that the party had begun. He ordered everyone around to immediately prepare for battle and told a story about a traveler. He went out alone to fight the demonic flower, and today they must come out in support of him. There is a warrior girl named Lucan here. She is the commander of the warriors of the Blue Knight. Lucan disagrees with the captain. They have already done all they could and will not be able to change the future. The captain replied that he considered the warriors of the Blue Knight to be ordinary trash and could begin the battle without them. Soon people noticed an army of black creatures approaching the city. Everything around became scary. The proximity of death always makes the heart beat faster. Horrible monsters of various kinds are ready to attack and tear everyone to pieces. It will be almost impossible to escape. All that remains is to challenge the forces of evil. Only at such moments does the captain feel alive. Sitting at home on the couch is worse than death for him. A massive massacre began, fearless warriors against mad monsters. David was supposed to run away with Mary, but curiosity did not give him peace. He turned around and saw a bright light. Only by looking closely could he understand what it was. This light looked like a human figure, as if an angel had descended from heaven. Mark does not believe in life after death. He was always sure that before death he would see his whole life. His parents abandoned him, the workers at the orphanage became his family, and then he became part of the tower. Here he experienced many interesting moments, found friends, and gained experience. At that moment his whole life flashed before his eyes, and he felt death knocking at his door. His eyes lit up with pain, a burning sensation he had never experienced before. It feels like he's melting and turning into steam, but death is supposed to relieve suffering. Soon the pain went away, and he saw a crying boy in front of him. No matter how hard he tried to get closer, it felt like he was just running on a treadmill. Only after some time did he see that this boy was his little copy. This is the past Mark, and as soon as this became clear, consciousness turned upside down. Mark saw a huge silhouette appear in front of him, and the most interesting thing was that this silhouette belonged to Pops. He opened his eyes and realized that he was on a snowy mountain, with a cold wind and a lot of snow around. In his arms were little Popsies, who did not hide their joy that their owner was alive. It turned out that he was completely naked, and at that moment, user Luyubov sponsored him to buy himself some clothes. Streams like this aren't allowed in the tower. We hope the administrator doesn't punish Mark for the intimate scenario. His clothes were torn to shreds and he could not find the sunstone. By this point, viewers could no longer see the prohibited content. The administration intervened and turned on censorship. The girls were upset and even tried to protest, but rules are rules. After Mark tried to destroy the huge demonic plant, his clothes were torn to pieces. The cloak absorbed the minor damage, and the Pops covered it with their fur. One of them ate the sunstone and they somehow regained their health. Even though he survived, many monsters burst out of the plant. Mark quickly ran to Taruha, because he needed to help his friends immediately. It was really hot in the city. Only one person was enjoying the process. The mad captain slaughtered monsters like pigs and then saw a meteorite in the sky. If he believed in fairy tales, he would gladly make a wish, but that is not the case. The meteorite approached the center of the monster region and destroyed the demons, grinding them into powder. The warriors could only watch what was happening. It seemed like divine intervention. The warriors felt as if God had descended from heaven to save Taruk. Mark found it very difficult to control his body. The mana was seething and trying to get out. A new wave of monsters appeared, and he decided to immediately show them who was boss. Captain Palak did not interfere. He silently watched what was happening and was not distracted by extraneous noise. Apparently, he immediately guessed who exactly was destroying the monsters, and that it was not an angel at all. Now everyone around began to understand that Mark had survived and had turned into the sacred savior of Taruk. Lucan started laughing and said that she would never in her life believe in a fairy tale. She has long since stopped clinging to empty hopes, and said that the savior would only worsen the situation of the city. Nevertheless, the captain still believed that in front of him was the very savior he had heard so much about. Mark destroyed demons without any emotion. Now it was as if he had reached Zen. Even though he was surrounded by huge monsters, his faith did not diminish. His martial art, Taruk, was growing before our eyes, and it was a pleasure to watch. Soon the monsters took out their nuclear weapons and began to attack our hero from different sides. Thanks to the help of Pops, he managed to stop the dangerous spikes and did not lose his former cheerfulness. This made him even more aggressive and reduced the monster's chances of winning. The captain's assistants offered to help since it was unseemly to stand idly by. With each passing minute, the number of monsters continued to grow. There were already more than 1,000 of them. The commander did not intervene, and within a few seconds, a deafening explosion was heard. During the many repetitions of the same end of Taruk, no one had ever experienced anything like it. The overwhelming power brought others to their knees. It was legendary. As the commander said, if this is really a manifestation of Lukanta, then they have nothing more to fear. When it was all over, they approached the epicenter of events and saw a large crater. The hole was so deep that it seemed like a meteorite had actually fallen there. The captain approached the angel, but it was so bright that he could not see his face. Mark took a few more steps, tried to say something, and then lost consciousness. Soon he opened his eyes but realized that he was in a house and the battle was over. He began to panic, because he didn't understand at all what had happened to Taruha. Had she really been destroyed? To defeat the monsters that were approaching the city, his body moved instinctively. He fought longer than usual and felt the mana spreading throughout his body. The Pops immediately began to hug their owner and rejoiced that everything was okay with him. The captain entered the room and smiled because the traveler looked great. Mark ate and drank water, and then learned that he had gotten rid of all the monsters single-handedly. He turned out to be the very hero who was supposed to save the city and its inhabitants, and will now become a legend. The body became much more flexible and lighter. It felt like he could walk through a wall. After awakening, the excess mana disappeared, leaving only his internal energy. He felt fine, but after a few seconds he started coughing up blood. You need to restore all your strength, then your health will immediately improve and Mark will become even stronger. Mana appeared in his body after he ate the magic stone on the first floor. He uses it as a knight's aura, and it wasn't intentional at all. It was all just instinct. David was on the street, trying to get into the house and talk to Mark personally. At that moment, some unknown force appeared from the captain's house and everything around was destroyed. A few minutes before, an interesting conversation had taken place in the house. The warriors tried to figure out what happened to Mark, and they had two main theories. Most likely, side effects have appeared and the circulation of mana is now blocked. When Mark uses this power, he feels very strange, even slightly unpleasant. It feels like he'll lose all emotion and turn into a beast, and I don't want that at all. There is a hidden power in his heart, so he needs to try to release it. You can't remain inactive. On the contrary, You need to quickly harness your own energy and use it for good. He tried to ignore his own mana to focus only on the power of his heart. Nothing was happening, so he remembered Karen's advice to recall important memories. Mark immediately remembered how he first met Pops. It was very important. He also cannot forget his first meeting with the administrator. From his last memories, an image of the child version of Mark constantly flashes in his head. At that moment, the power of the heart began to be released. He immediately felt a burning sensation from within. He has an incredibly strong heart. Now it is clear why the mancoma cannot circulate normally in the body. Two forces meet and interfere with each other, but now everything will change. Mark felt very strange. He started coughing up blood and sweating rapidly. The temperature rose to critical levels, and the energy in the heart began to absorb the body. He didn't know what to do, so Mark decided to take matters into his own hands and immediately exploded. It was this explosion that destroyed several rooms and most of the roof. Although this method was rather strange, Mark felt better and quickly fell asleep. When Mark opened his eyes, it was already night, but he felt better. In total, he slept for more than a day and a half. Apparently, the explosion took a lot of his strength. At the same time, the captain was trying to fix the roof and was clearly unhappy with what had happened. At that moment, somewhere on the 20th floor, there was a player who was noticeably nervous. He tried with all his might to find Mark, because thanks to him, even the 40th floor would seem like nonsense. He had to shower David with coins in order to find out at least some information. But it didn't help. The only thing he could find out was the name Mark, and even this information is in doubt. Most likely, he is not the only one who is interested in this monster. Our hero attracts everyone's attention, and many want to befriend him for their own benefit.
Let's move on to the 70th floor. Yes, you can get that high in this tower.
There we can meet our old friend, the beautiful Carol, nicknamed Love. She goes with John to meet with the head of the clan and already knows that the world could disappear from the face of the earth. The administrator said this, but Lubov refuses to trust him because he is too shady a guy. Gapan is the head of the Hippocrates Guild, and it is to him that they are going to meet. The rest of the guild members are busy today, so it was decided to start the meeting with just the three of us. Everyone knows that Carol has been watching a lot of streams featuring newcomers lately. Gapan doesn't try to accuse her of anything. He asks the girl to calm down and says only that he has a request for her. His smile immediately reveals that he is a cunning fox, and that is why Carol finds it so difficult to contain her emotions. Some changes have taken place on the 5th floor. They say that even the emperor has changed, and this has influenced the behavior of the townspeople. Love must figure out whether this is really true, even though it seems to her that this is a stupid request. The 5th floor cannot influence the 70th floor, but Gapon doesn't think so. The administrator suspects that the changes were caused by user actions. All experienced users know that dam collapses begin with small cracks. The guild members have almost completed the 70th floor and therefore do not want any new problems to arise. Carol was given a task. If the changes were caused by the player, then she must immediately kill him. You all know that the girl has been watching the brand since the very first day, and therefore future events will be incredibly interesting. A huge number of people gathered near the house. Everyone was supposed to run to the portal, but this did not happen. The Fountain of Trials has a system where everyone gets their rank. Once a solo mission is completed, the names of the first 3 users will be posted in the Hall of Fame. There you can gather viewers and earn a reward. But due to an unknown force, Mark will be closely watched. The reward system will work against him, and the Pops will also be in danger. His powers are unstable, the gauntlet is destroyed, and it is unknown when the cloak will be restored. Now he really needs outside help because there are only a few days left before the floor closes. If he masters the art of close combat, he will be able to protect his body without using any other skills. This will be quite challenging to do, but training with the captain can help. A good teacher will always help a student progress, even a dangerous teacher like Palak. Even if he comes here again, the captain won't remember him because of the system, so his friendship must be valued here and now. By training with this guy, you can quickly level up and reach the 20th floor. A crowd of people gathered around. Everyone was interested in seeing the local hero. This shouldn't distract Mark, because training completely absorbs his attention. They fought for several hours straight, and everyone who gathered to watch this battle was satisfied. Thanks to such training, Mark achieved unprecedented progress and felt more confident. While he was improving his martial arts, the Pops were restoring their health. The last night in Taruha has arrived. The mission is accomplished, it is time to move on. As a gift for completing the mission, Mark received more than just money. He also now owns a spatial backpack and a leather tunic, the Master of the 7 Snakes. This clothing contains the ability of a snake and even helps to split people into 2. Thanks to training, Mark's body has acquired incredible shape, but instead of competing in bodybuilding competitions, he destroys monsters. As soon as he put on the tunic, you immediately felt weak and dizzy. His energy left his body and his vital forces ran out in an instant. He tried to focus on pop music, and this helped him get back to his former state. Getting used to the regeneration stuff will take some time and effort. I slept well, and the next morning, I went to the city center. He didn't meet his friends at home or even on the streets, so it looks like he'll have to forget about saying goodbye. At first, Mark was scared, because there was no one around and this could mean that the floor was overloaded. He immediately ran to the fountain where the portal should be, and did not immediately understand what had happened. There he met a huge number of players and ordinary residents of the city. They all chanted his name and thanked him for everything he did for Taruk. Apparently, this is the farewell that the local hero deserved. Now he is called the Great Savior of Lukent. Songs are composed about him, and legends are told. Until recently, people had completely lost faith, but Mark managed to restore their hope for a bright future. Mark was very pleased to hear all these congratulations. Tears appeared in his eyes. Thus, the fascinating journey through the city of Taruha has come to an end. It's unknown what awaits him next. But one thing is certain, it will be fun. Soon, a cheerful player named Blake, who was ready for any challenge, arrived on the 15th floor. The portal was closed once the number of participants reached the limit and everyone prepared for the mission. Blake immediately ran to the residents of Taruk to find out from them what exactly needed to be done. From the very beginning, he didn't understand anything. Only snow-capped mountain peaks were visible on the horizon, and nothing more. People celebrated and didn't even pay attention to him. He tried to figure out what was happening, but all he heard were songs about the legendary warrior Lukanta. Mark changed not only the 15th floor, he influenced the entire tower as a whole. The 10th floor is also not calm now, because members of the Hippocrates Guild have arrived here. They are looking for the person responsible for the problems on the floor. They know his outward signs, and therefore they check every player in the tower. Mark already understood what was happening and was not even surprised, because his name had been known for a long time. Mark is ranked first in the player rankings, and therefore the number of his subscribers is constantly growing. You need to remain calm and unnoticed. You can't fall into the hands of the Hippocrates Guild. Mark stepped onto the 16th floor and prepared for a new task. Here he faces a large-scale test in which he will have to commit massacre. A large number of participants will gather here, and they will have to fight at the same time to complete the mission. Users began to get to know each other, but only Mark did not show his face. People began to suspect him of bad deeds, because only bandits hide their appearance. Steven didn't want to start a fight from the start, but he didn't want to take part in a mission with a bandit. Mark calmed the guy down, said his name, and at that moment the mission began. A statue came to life behind him, but Mark cut it into pieces in a matter of moments. Now these guys will understand that they are with a real professional in his field. The statues around began to come to life, and it became clear that they were not very friendly to users. Other users were shocked they had never seen such preparation. Mark destroyed all the statues around and did it almost instantly. After reaching the floor, the user walks along a long corridor where stone statues are activated. They have in their hands a solution that can freeze everything over a large area. Even if you pass through an ice trap, this does not mean that you can relax. All statues can attack, so users must team up with each other to survive. Only Mark is in no hurry to make friends. He acts independently and avoids all the traps. To do this, he even had to walk along the wall, although no one else thought of it. The mission on the 16th floor is like a symbiosis of the previous missions. Here you need to not only clear the area, but also solve the puzzle at the end. Mark has demonstrated his value and earned the respect of other players. Now they treat him like a hero and want to work together. Steven is a member of the Hanshin clan, and this is the first time he has seen such a talented warrior. Mark had already heard about this clan, and so he immediately decided to ask them for something. The inspection on the 10th floor continued. It had been going on for several weeks. The leader of the Hanshin clan is currently being investigated, and Steven is very unhappy with these delays. Mark hopes that the Hanshin clan will not succumb to provocations and will not allow themselves to be searched. They were offered a substantial reward for each clan member to show their face. But apparently for Steven, this is like a slap in the face, and he is not ready to tolerate it. Any self-respecting user will not humiliate themselves in front of others, especially Steven. Thus, he refused to be checked, and all the participants in his plan calmly went inside. The leader of the Hanshin clan is in charge of the 10th floor, so everyone must bend over backwards for them. Thus, Steven passed the test without any problems, and tomorrow he will meet with the leader of the Hanshin clan. This clan cares about the safety of its users and looks for quick exits from the tower. However, they receive serious resistance from the users of the 30th floor, and weakened a little at the same time, and where Hippocrates declared a hunt for Mark and will do everything to achieve her goal. He doesn't plan to join any of the clans, but he doesn't like the Hippocrates Guild. Let's move for a moment to the 50th floor, to the factory complex of the Hippocrates Guild. Here we can meet our old friend, Carol, who came to an important meeting. She came down here to see the supply chain and the daily disposal schedule. The director does not want to do this, because then his fraud with the materials will be exposed. At that moment, the doors of the building were knocked down and an overly self-confident guy appeared. This is the first time Carol has seen this imposter, but he doesn't seem to be lost. We have Hotpot user Mark, a loyal stream viewer, here to cause chaos. A few seconds later, a battle began between two fans of our main character. He's not part of the clan, but if he knows Carol, that means he used to be on the team. Hotpot heard that they were bothering this man, and now he wants to take revenge on the entire guild. He had already heard that the Hippocrates Guild had interfered in the affairs of the 10th floor, and he would not forgive them for this mistake. He was already preparing to destroy Carol, but she froze and seemed to understand everything. At the last moment, the girl said only one word, "Pops," and the attack immediately stopped. This is what happens when two fans of the same blogger meet. They immediately become best friends. Meanwhile, on the 10th floor, Mark went to Craig's workshop. You need to work on the Infinity Gauntlet in order to improve its characteristics. Mark has improved his martial arts skills and now wants to change up his weapons a bit. He is ready to move on to the next floor, but first he wants to pay off his debts. In the evening, he met with the head of the Hanshin clan, a young user named Han. They quickly became acquainted and found common ground, although it was strange to see Khan on such a low floor. The clan leader has already heard a lot about Mark and knows that he is facing an unusual newcomer. He already knows what happened on the 15th floor and how exactly it affected the entire tower. Mark wants to make a deal because he has a lot of delicious ingredients. The head of the guild is a first-class chef who knows how to prepare real delicacies. Many people know his passion for cooking, and Mark knew it from the very beginning. Khan is not against cooperation, but first Mark must get through the 17th floor and prove his worth. If he's already done this, then playing her will be much more painful on the second playthrough. This is a great opportunity not only to level up, but also to gain Han's support. Not all users feel confident during difficult tests. There were a lot of people gathered on the 17th floor, but some of them got there by luck. The soul of one of the 6 is swapped with a shadow, and the users must find the shadow. Otherwise, 5 people will die, so the sacrifice must be brought to the altar of the evil god. Users must hold a vote and find the shadow with the help of a stone statue. The statue will act as a lie detector, as a player named Pak has already reported. Yumi looks scared, and the genie feels irritated because it is not clear how to detect the shadow. Minha and Hassan understand that it will be difficult, but they try to hope for the best. Meanwhile, Mark remains calm and tries to quickly analyze the situation. The system reported that the tests were beginning, and the statues once again turned into living beings. Users have less than an hour to make a decision, so it's best to hurry. Also, according to the terms of the mission, you can offer 3 people as a sacrifice, but this will reduce the reward. People's lives are at stake, so not everyone is ready to make such sacrifices. If a fight breaks out between players, the attacker will automatically be chosen as the victim. This rule was set by the administrator to prevent the mission from being completed by brute force. Everyone around began to suspect each other of such tasks, and this is the main problem. If participants do not behave consciously, it will be difficult to remain objective. Mark decided to intervene because he realized that there were too many amateurs around. He understands that if a solution is not found, then girls will be chosen as victims. There is also a possibility that they will kill each other, because the conflict is escalating with each passing minute. He decided to turn to the statue and ask a question in order to get closer to the truth. At this point, the day began to get nervous because it felt like Mark might find the truth. The question was quite simple, because Mark was sure that the shadow's gender had changed from male to female. Minha began to protest and said that the question was incorrect, but Mark did not listen to her. The statue immediately smiled, and at that moment Mark instantly realized who the shadow really was. Having asked just one question, he quickly found the answer, and now forgot about any doubts. The shadow floor has changed, but that doesn't mean habits have changed. If you watch a person closely, you can quickly understand what is wrong with him. Mark looked at Yumi and reminded her that they had met before. At first, she pretended not to understand what he was talking about and behaved as before, very nervous and scared. Mark decided to use her real name, as she is Chuck, a health coach. They took part in the 6th floor test together, and all of its characteristics remained the same. Mark remembers very well what happened on the 5th floor, and remembers all of Chuck's habits. Now Yumi said that in the past, she chose high difficulty, and also mentioned that she was a coach. Now Mark has no doubts left, although Yumi continues to shout that all this is not true. She claims that the statue only confirmed the change of gender of the shadow, but this does not mean that it is the shadow. Mark doesn't like the witch hunt, but he wants to pass the test. All that remains is to ask the remaining 5 questions to the statue and be convinced of your theory. No one resisted, and Mark began asking all his questions to the statue. He learned that he had already met the shadow before, and it saw him on the 6th floor. It was clear that with each question, Yumi felt worse and worse. She begged them to stop, repeating that she was not guilty of anything, but no one believed her anymore. Soon the voting began, and everyone unequivocally agreed that Yumi was a shadow. The vote ended unanimously, with all users supporting Mark's theory. Now the shadow has fallen into the hands of the statue. The moment of retribution for his lies has come. She didn't want to clean up and begged him to change his mind. But it was too late. The players pretended not to notice everything that was happening, although the execution took place before their eyes. The test was passed, and the system confirmed that users had correctly removed the shadow. The portals opened instantly, and the players immediately thanked Mark for her help. With these events, a conversation took place between the leaders of the Hanshin clan. Steven said that Mark completed his task and successfully passed the 17th floor. Han was not at all surprised by this news, because he knew that he was dealing with a professional. Now he is worried about completely different things, because complete chaos has begun on the 20th floor. It has to do with a newly formed guild and a schoolgirl with iron fists. It feels like hard times are coming now, so you need to be prepared for anything. Khan even started talking about the blackout, although this topic had never been raised before. Recently, all users of the 10th floor were moved to a dark space. When they returned, everything had changed, and this phenomenon was called a blackout. Strange things happen on the 20th floor, just like on the 15th floor. The most interesting thing is that the root of all these problems is a man named Mark. For the first time in a long time, things have become not fun at all, because a serious riot is brewing. Now Mark has returned to the 10th floor again, but has not met a single member of the Hippocrates Guild. It's time to talk to Han and resolve all the necessary issues. The guild leader had already determined all the participants with whom Mark would undergo the test. He watched each of them and therefore saw every step of our hero. This says a lot. With his actions, Khan shows that he sees absolutely everything. He had previously considered Mark to be lucky, but he had never met anyone who could walk so calmly up to the 17th floor. In any case, Mark has proven his worth, and now wants to make a deal. Now Khan must prove himself and show that he can be useful. Now they are fighting to see who has the best cards in this information game. Now Khan is in dire need of useful information. Mark has data on tests he hasn't yet undergone, thanks to a video of the future. At first, Han thought that Mark was just a regular psychopath from the tower, but now it became clear that this was not the case. He wants to find out everything Mark knows about the tower and use it for his own purposes. After a few hours, their conversation came to an end. They had managed to discuss a lot. Mark is ready to tell any information, not only if Khan gets rid of him. To be more precise, he wants to erase his existence up to the 20th floor. We need to destroy all the rumors that have spread about Mark, even though it won't be easy. Khan is willing to help in a slightly different way. He can overshadow Mark's existence with something else. First, we need to mix up the rumors circulating among people. We must add to them those rumors that concern Mark personally and his achievements. This will result in a mess of incomprehensible information that will help our hero. This way you can gain enough time to get to the desired floor. They make a deal, but in exchange Mark must provide information. He talked about everything that happened in the past and how he ended up in the tower, and even about pop music. While others perceive the passage of the tower as a game, Mark perceives it as reality. His attitude is very serious because he wants to reach the top floor. They shook hands, made a deal, and now it was time to head to the 18th floor. Meanwhile, on the 70th floor, an important event takes place at the headquarters in the Hippocrates apartment. Here we already know about the attacks on magical factories carried out by Hot Pot. No one recognized him from the photograph, but it is known that she attacks with magic and leaves no traces. This guy doesn't hide his face, which means he's confident, but he doesn't go on a frontal attack, which is strange. Following the previous attack, Carol was seriously injured and is now in the hospital. Gapan doesn't quite trust this information. He feels like they're trying to deceive him. Right now, he is ready to meet with Carol and make sure that she is really hurt. Meanwhile, Mark is preparing to go to the 18th floor and is collecting his equipment. Now he constantly remembers the administrator and tries to understand what to expect from him in the future. Mark has almost completely assembled the Snake Master set. Only 2 elements remain. If the administrator is willing to fight, then Mark is ready to accept the challenge and start a war. On the 18th floor, players will find the Cloud Village of Ilu. Clans send their best warriors here because the difficulty level is quite high. Mark soon joined the users, but was in no hurry to reveal his face. Mostly, experienced players complete this task as there is no place for beginners here. Such tests should only be faced by a proven psyche. If a player hasn't encountered difficulties yet, he may not be ready. In simple terms, the 18th floor is no place for small children. In the Cloud Village of Ilu, you need to catch 5 blue demon birds within the allotted time. If the birds die, the mission will fail, and there are no more than 10 minutes for this entire task. Experienced users immediately began discussing strategy, as teamwork is essential. Mark immediately analyzed his partners and realized which of them were truly experienced. Demonic birds are quite fast, so you can't let your guard down even for a second. Catching monsters with magic is a popular idea with viewers, but it won't work today. Bird feathers are resistant to magic, so a different approach is needed. Blue demon birds become aggressive when confined. Even if you surround the cage, it will still be almost impossible to praise the monster. He will tear people into pieces faster than they can understand anything. That's why I only send verified users here, who know what to do. Malik is willing to share a strategy for victory, but only if he is paid 500 coins each. He wants to make easy money, because they understand that no one can cope without his help. This is not the first time he has found himself at this stage, so he is trying to escalate the situation and take advantage of the panic. With his physical abilities, he can jump like Superman, not to mention his fighting techniques. All this is enough for people to believe in his skills and give him their money. Malik was ready to receive the last donation, but Mark was in no hurry to pay. He said that he could handle it on his own, and that he didn't need anyone else's help. Users started getting angry. Because of him, the whole plan could fail. Mark didn't pay any attention to this and prepared to begin the test. As soon as he received the signal, he immediately took action and used his skills. But after just a few seconds, all the demonic birds were caught by his clothes. The tests were completed faster than users even had time to understand what had happened. While Mark waited for the portal to the next floor to open, the other players looked at him like he was a superhero. Malak immediately heard that he had to return the money because he had done nothing to win. Now everyone praises Mark and calls him the best player in the history of the tower. This is the perfect moment to leave and not let your identity be revealed. Meanwhile, Gapon met with Lubov at the local hospital. She was surprised to meet the guild leader, but remained calm. The wounds were quite serious, especially the cut on the side caused by the mana blade. Although it sounds strange, Gapon would like to examine his ward's wound. Although Carol smiled in response, in her mind she had already called Gapon all the worst names in the world. She cannot refuse the request as this will only raise new suspicions. The boss quickly became convinced of the truth of her words. The light of mana was even now visible on her body. She said that the opponent was very strong. she didn't even have time to react. He put all his strength into the first strike, which is probably why he decided to run away immediately. It's hard for a boss to see an irreplaceable person suffer from injuries. After that, he asked her to get well soon and immediately left for the hospital. It is difficult to be around this person, even though at first it seems that he is quite clean and tidy. It wasn't until the 50th floor that Carol realized she'd been wrong about him. Meanwhile, Mark only had one step left to reach the 20th floor. Subscribers sponsor his achievements and his popularity grows steadily. Now it's time to try your luck on the 19th floor. This three-dimensional labyrinth was created by Raisin, the genius of the magic tower. Patricia is clearly scared because she understands that it will be difficult to escape from the labyrinth. Christopher is not nervous at all. He thinks that it is enough to just leave marks on the walls and everything will be fine. Apparently, they are arguing about the strategy for passing, and this is the right approach. The goal of this test is to escape the labyrinth, and it will be more difficult than last time. Hard-level trials increase the number of rooms to several thousand. Identical rooms are connected by identical doors, and there are also monsters and traps here. If the user is particularly unlucky, he will encounter a magical attack. The entrance and exit of the labyrinth are located in the same place, but everything is not so simple. Once the hidden switch is activated, a hidden exit from the room will appear. Blake also takes part here. We already saw this guy when he got to the 15th floor. Now he took with him a guide to passing the labyrinth, and paid a huge amount of money for it. He is confident that this will help him pass the test successfully. Christopher doubts that such books can be trusted. He sees deception in everything. Blake has no doubts because they use hints from viewers who never lie. You only have one life, so trusting an unknown source is pretty stupid. Mark said that he wants to destroy the floor here, so he asked everyone to step aside. Christopher thought that everyone around him was crazy, and he was the only one with brains. One is trying to listen to the advice of an unknown book, and the other is trying to undermine the floor. This is absurd. Black suggested trusting Mark and giving him a chance to prove himself. As soon as the test began, the players immediately dispersed. This place definitely reacts to mana, and it looks familiar. The same blue glow emanated from the huge mana stone on the first floor. The 14th floor test was also completed in an unconventional manner. This means that now an unconventional approach can also work and you can use pops. Apparently they liked this idea right away because they hadn't eaten anything tasty for a long time. Very quickly, these small and cute creatures turned into evil dinosaurs. This is exactly what is needed to make a huge hole in the floor of a room. The room below is also filled with mana. The switch should be there. The admin could change everything because he does everything to ensure that Mark fails. As soon as Mark pressed the button, he immediately realized that something strange was happening. The room began to move and a strange silhouette appeared behind him. At first it seemed like an ordinary pigeon, but last time the blue one turned out to be the administrator. Now he has not changed the tradition, showed his face again, and reminded about the proposal. It's not too late for Mark to become an administrator, but it's unlikely he's changed his mind since last time. Although the administrator had hoped for a different answer, this time the conversation would again end in nothing. However, he is confident that Mark will change his mind when he reaches the 20th floor. At this point, the task was automatically completed, but the admin's words intrigued our hero. Other users couldn't understand how he completed the task so quickly. Mark did not go into details and said that he did not have to report his actions to anyone. At that moment, Blake looked at him and said that in the future, Mark should be more careful. He feels that Mark might have used cheating skills, which is prohibited. Everyone knows that if you do this during a game, you can get stuck in the textures without the ability to move. He learned all this from the audience and therefore asks Mark not to deceive others. Our hero has no intention of discussing such topics and prefers to ignore the idiocy. He decided to return to the 10th floor, where interesting rumors were currently circulating. An unknown user is offering a reward at the highest levels. It offers over 5,000 coins for various actions, and everyone is talking about it now. Mark wants to go straight to the 20th floor. Well, first of all, to make sure that Han fulfilled his part of the deal. As soon as he left the portal, a tall and strong man asked him to show his face. Without waiting for an answer, the man immediately removed the hood from our hero's head. The most interesting thing is that Mark turned out to be not the person they were looking for. These guys apologized for their behavior and admitted their mistake.
It feels like they're looking for Mark, but they think he's a woman, and don't even ask me why.
Now everyone is talking about Mark, and at the same time he can no longer hide his face. He came to meet with Han and found out that there was too much work there because of him. Apparently everything went according to plan, and false rumors are spreading easily among the players. Khan fulfilled his part of the deal perfectly. Now Mark can rest easy. The moment comes when Mark must fulfill his part of the bargain and provide information. He sent a message to user Han and told him everything he needed to know. The message contains information about Taruk, its characters, and features. For a man like Khan, such information could become a weapon in his hands. Went on a well-deserved rest in preparation for the next floor. He received a new message from Han who told him something important. There have been some strange changes on the 20th floor, and the atmosphere there is bad now. The changes are not limited to the 20th floor, but this is where the biggest changes are. Characters no longer have to save Taruk. Now they have to save themselves. The fact is that Captain Palak has gone crazy and wants to punish everyone who harms his city. Apparently the NPC is no longer controlled and now players are just trying to survive. Everything changed right up to the 20th floor because of one man named Mark. Meanwhile, our hero entered the portal and found himself on the 20th floor. Now he's trying to figure out what's going on here. since Han's message didn't explain much. It's immediately obvious that compassion has clearly not been heard here, and that's bad. Mark was ordered to immediately show his face and bow down if he wanted to live. Of course, he was in no hurry to do this. Instead, he took out his weapon and prepared for battle. At that moment, one of the soldiers began to attack and prepared to cut off his head. Mark instantly intercepted the weapon and showed that he was the only one in charge here. If the other warriors don't want their leader to lose his head, you must moderate your ardor. At that moment, a brave and uncompromising man appeared on the battlefield. He immediately began to attack our hero, no matter what. It was Palak. At first, Mark thought that the captain was trying to kill him, but then everything fell into place. The captain smiled broadly at his friend and said that he was glad to see him. The most interesting thing in this situation is that the captain remembers him, although the warrior's memories should have been updated. Everyone not only remembers user Mark, but also continues to praise the exploits of the legendary Lukanta. The tower's residents cannot be recognized as users even when changing channels. This has always been the case. Palak had to meet Mark as a stranger, but he remembered everything that happened in the past. He greeted his hero and said that he was glad to see him in Taruha. At that moment, another user, whom Mark had been looking for a long time, was following him. He noticed that the warriors were friendly towards him, and this did not surprise anyone. Meanwhile, boss Hippocrates learned that all members of his guild were suppressed. The queen expels all users from the fortress and also kills the leaders. Everything changes, and all that remains is to eradicate the cause of the changes. On the 20th floor, Mark noticed that there were users who were not attacked by warriors. Apparently, they showed respect and quickly got along with the local population. Apparently, these are members of the Hanshin clan, which means Han made excellent use of the new information. It's time to come visit your friend and relax a little. Here, as always, you can meet a wonderful hostess as well as a faithful guard. In this house, you will always be fed delicious food and put to bed in a warm bed. The Pops feel right at home. Apparently, they have completely gotten out of the habit of the damp cave. After meeting Mark, the captain remembers everything very clearly and distinctly, and now he no longer forgets anything. The division between the channels has disappeared, and even if you switch to another channel, the captain remains unchanged. He remembers everything perfectly, and this makes Mark feel uneasy. Now Leto is busy clearing the area of ill-wishers. Karen constantly has problems with headaches because he has a lot of work lately. They would be glad to know about Mark's return, but it would be better not to distract them from their work. The demonic flower was destroyed, and the city's inhabitants did not understand anything. They thought they were fighting for their right to exist, but they realized they were only dulling their emotions. On the 15th floor, Taruha is a recurring nightmare. The most interesting thing is that the 20th floor is supposed to reflect the worst part of this nightmare. Now, this is no longer relevant, thanks to the savior of Lukanta. Now, city dwellers can take a break from monsters and enjoy normal life. The city woke up from a nightmare, although it seemed like it would never end. This does not mean that the best is behind us now, because Mark continues to be followed. Summer doesn't like it when strange botanists hang around the captain's house. He scared Kenneth to death, and it's not surprising, because Leto is like some monsters. He is not going to let the spies go, because such guys need to be put in prison. Sometimes criminals dream of the death penalty, just to avoid spending time alone with Leto. At that moment, Mark came out of the house and witnessed a strange scene. It was not easy to understand what exactly had happened, but the warrior explained everything. They were glad to see each other because past battles were still in both of their memories. Mark asked to be left alone with Kenneth because he had guessed what had happened. In fact, this is not their first meeting. Mark has already seen this guy before while watching a video. After reaching the 15th floor, Kenneth stopped climbing and began working as a detective. Mark wants to make friends with such a talented guy and use his services. They can make a deal. They just need to find one person in a week. This man's name is Chris Reynolds, and he is the one Mark is interested in. Chris Reynolds is a genius of magical engineering. He is capable of so much, and getting support from such a person would be incredible. He is a fairly tall young man with blonde hair, blue eyes, and round glasses. In exchange, Mark will release Kenneth from prison in Taruha and personally vouch for his behavior. Although it won't be easy to come to an agreement with Leto, it's possible to find an approach to every person, especially if you're the hero of the city who saved the residents from the advancing monsters. Finally, Mark noticed something strange and began to worry. When he watched the video, he saw Kenneth climbing the tower with the knight. Now he is walking alone, and this could have happened due to changes or admin intervention. Mark started thinking about various potential troubles and heard a familiar sound. Now, when he hears the sounds of a dove, he falls into a rage and panic. The administrator is not afraid to show that he is constantly monitoring the player and thereby putting pressure on him. But at the same time, Mark is not only not afraid, but is also ready to challenge the administrator. He quickly took out his infinity gauntlet and decided to show who was the real boss here. The explosion was very large scale, but the result was not as desired. Mark heard the familiar voice of the administrator mocking him. With just one movement, he knocked our hero off his feet and almost broke all of his ribs. This city means a lot not only to Mark, but also to the administrator. He was sure that Mark would be glad to see such an image of Taruk, and he was right. When Mark grabbed him by the neck, the administrator was not afraid, but on the contrary, he felt confident. He changed his appearance and turned into a small copy of our hero. The captain heard the screams and immediately ran out into the street to protect his friend. When he saw what was happening here, he did not hide his surprise at all. Before his eyes, the city's hero tried to strangle a little boy who looked like himself. At that moment, everything froze in the air. Pala did not move at all, just like everyone else. The same thing happened with Pops and all the animals around. A person's memories are his soul, and Taruha became the place where the administrator checked this. He watched how long they could last, experiencing the endlessly repeating events. Someone will be waiting for a savior. I don't understand whether this being will actually be a hero. The residents of Taru could not stop hoping, because they had no other choice. It was a test, and the city's residents passed it successfully, and the administrator is ready to admit it. With his actions, he tries to show that he is not a bad person. He also helped Mark in the shadow game and did everything to help him get here. Now he didn't appreciate it at all. Quite the opposite, it caused even more anger. No matter what happens, his answer will not change and he will not become an administrator. After these words, Mark fired from his glove and tore the administrator's body into pieces. This is not enough to kill him. A much more serious method is needed. The administrator noticed that Mark was acting very coldly in order not to reveal his weaknesses. He noticed that his weakness was Pops, whom he loved so much. This means that weakness can be exploited and cause Mark great pain. At the last moment, he tried to stop the administrator, but it turned out that even without help, the Pops were too strong to be destroyed so easily. Now the administrator realized that in front of him were the spirits of the world tree, who had escaped from the containment device. At that moment, Mark ordered Pops to run away immediately and did not look back. They began to emit light from themselves, thanks to the mana of the Sunstone. If only for a moment, their attack stopped the admin's movement. This means that the Sunstone's mana can work if it still remains in Mark's body. This power can turn into the key to defeating the admin and changing everything. You just need to take advantage of your chance and realize your hidden potential. It sounds simple in words, but in reality, the administrator is too powerful. To kill him, you need to truly feel hatred and explode. There was a huge explosion of energy. It was very large scale and spectacular. Even Mark didn't understand how this happened, because this energy didn't resist his desire at all. It feels like he's become passive, and now his chances of winning have increased. This was not enough to defeat the administrator. On the contrary, he only became more angry. The administrator is not going to fight. They will meet in the future, but under different circumstances. After that, I had to go back to my room and restore the scent of energy. After this, Mark thanked his friend and said that it was time for him to go. It's time to get to grips with the tower. We can't relax too much before the tests. The administrator will interfere with your further journey, and that is the worst thing. It is only on the 25th floor that Mark can solve the Pop's riddle about the ancient tree. Finally, he decided to check the award he received for winning the Hall of Fame. He became the best on the 15th floor and received the pendant of Shaq Neal. The ruler of shadows can create one shadow of himself for 10 seconds. This is a good thing, but it won't help much now, because there are too many useful things in your hands. Mark set out on the road and soon felt that he was being secretly watched. He immediately ordered the spies to come out of hiding and show their faces. They know that there is a man named Mark in front of them, and first they just want to talk. It's strange to hear that people want to talk while holding weapons in their hands, but that's the reality of the tower.